turned my back on the open space.
And in real time, this is happening fast.
Yes, this is like all happening in a matter of seconds. And I looked up to say goodbye to my friends and confirm when we were going to get together. And the exact instant that I turned to go through that open door, the guys left and the door started to swing closed. And so, like, it had to be to the millisecond. That door came closed, big, heavy glass door, and I turned around, and my bridge of my nose and that door met at full speed.
Like that?
Yeah, and it knocked me back, and I thought I was going down. I thought I was going down. I was seeing stars.
So it was Rocky 2. You thought you were going down? I was seeing
stars. I was like, don't, just keep your composure. Don't go down. And I was able to stay up, and then I kind of shook my head a little bit. I got my senses back about me. The guys behind me said, "You okay?" And of course, now it's the walk of shame.
Right.
And I'm like, "I'm fine." I just lift my hand up. I'm fine. And I don't even look back at them.
And what you don't realize is the Red Sea has opened up.
Oh, yeah. I walked out the first door, out onto the patio, out of the second door, and I'm like, what in the world's going on? And I was gushing blood out of the bridge of my nose.
Okay, this music's perfect for this. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Continue.
And so I cupped my hands like this, and I went, oh, my word, I need to get back into the bathroom. I cupped my hands because I don't want to keep bleeding on the sidewalk.
And your shirt, your tie, your suit, that's all.
Tie's messed up.
That's all trouble.
Shirt's messed up. Okay. Jacket's messed up. I go like this. By the time I make it back, not that far to the bathroom, and I don't know who the good Samaritan that helped me was, but he said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, open the bathroom door and go grab me a bunch of paper towels." By the time I get in there, my entire hand, I don't know if you was completely filled with blood. I might as well have just gone and donated a pint. And
that reminds me of what Bill Murray said. Whatever you do, give 100% unless you're donating blood.
Oh, yeah, I didn't give 100%.
No, you need some.
So he helped me clean up a little bit, and we cleaned up, and it took me 35 minutes to get that to stop bleeding. And
do you think it's broken?
Probably is. And then my big worry was I'd have black eyes in the morning. And here's the thing, though. For this show, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to put myself in concussion protocol. So I was in concussion protocol, and I released myself. So today I was clear.
You released yourself.
I cleared myself today from concussion protocol so that I could come do the show.
So if things go off the rails here, we'll just put up a concussion alert sign.
Yeah, there should be a flashing
put some music
that comes across the top that says concussion alert.
Well, that got me thinking because we were tweeting some stuff out for today's debut, and I said, "Can I use your picture of your nose?" You sent my
picture out, which I don't know why I let you do.
And because I said that we both prepared for tonight in two very different ways. Mm-hmm. And now we've explained that, but it got me thinking, you've taken some big hits over the years, and a lot of the aftermath of those hits will be revealed on this show in the years to come, I'm sure. But for folks with us, and by the way, Med Ward 1 says he hopes you feel better soon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Nice.
I don't know who that is, but since he's saying Brother Fowler, he's probably up on campus with me yesterday.
Yeah, maybe. He might have opened the door. And we're like brothers. We've been doing this together since 1989, so they can call us whatever they want.
It was not. There's always a silver lining to everything, though. So the silver lining is Brenda always gets me on that joke. Does your face hurt? And I'm going, no, why? And it's just because it's killing me.
It's killing me.
So if she tries that now and she says, does your face hurt? The answer is
yes, it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My face.
And then
hurts.
she can't do the punchline.
The punchline's
it's gone.
Spoiled.
All right, let's think about for a moment. We're going to have big guests on this show as we move through the coming years, the coming months, get ready for the last year of independence. But let's talk about big hits since you took a big one coming in. What's the biggest hit you took as a quarterback at BYU?
Absolutely the biggest hit I took in my entire football career was opening day, 1984. We're on the road at Pittsburgh. It's the start of the national championship march.
It's the first live sports broadcast in the history of ESPN.
Yep. It's our first offensive series. First time we touched the ball.
I remember the play. I've seen it many times.
First play, we decide we're going to use a little trickeration. And so I come in at halfback.
And Pitt's ranked number 3, right?
Yeah. And it's a big task to go on the road, and they've been really, really good. So I line up a halfback. They toss the ball to me. Robbie tosses the ball to me. Glenn Kozlowski runs a post down the middle of the field. I try to sell the sweep, the pitch or the toss as long as I can, and then pull the ball out and throw the ball downfield to Glenn Kozlowski. We complete it. But just as I was letting the ball go, 2 Pittsburgh defenders, including Chris Dolman, who's a multi-year Pro Bowler, one of the greatest defensive ends in the history of the game of football, he put the crown of his head which by the way would be a penalty today.
It was a different game.
Not back then. Right on my chin. And I saw very similar stars to the ones I saw when the door hit me on Sunday afternoon when I got hit. And I went over the sideline and I put my hand up. I had we didn't have those plastic, with the padding in them, chin straps. We had cloth chin straps. And I put my hand up. I thought, whoa, what is that? And I did my chin strap. And I literally had a golf ball size lump on my chin that I was proud of.
People don't know that's the price you paid to throw the first pass completion on ESPN.
Yeah, and Glenn made a phenomenal catch.
He might have saved you on that because that was
I was getting hit, that
catch.
thing got away from me a little bit, and it kind of took off, but there was nothing that Glenn couldn't get to. And he literally laid completely out flat to make that catch. And that kind of gave us some momentum, and we got going. I do remember the first ball that Robbie threw in that game shortly thereafter, because I was standing right next to our quarterback's coach, Mike Holmgren. And Robbie was a little fired up, and to be, this is his first start.
Yeah,
he's throwing a little hitch route on the sideline, so the receiver just goes 3 steps and turns in, right on our sideline, and the ball goes 15 feet over the receiver's head, right over Mike Holmgren's head, over my head, and like maybe into the first row. And Mike Holmgren just casually looks down the play sheet and says to me, "I think he's a little jacked up." And I go, "Yeah, he's a little jacked up." He was
jacked up. All right, let's think of big hits. A lot of people think newscasters can't possibly take big hits. But a couple of years ago up at KSL, we were in the middle of the 10 o'clock news, and I went, sometimes, if you get bored, I go into the weather office, see what Kevin's doing. Those commercials are like 3.5 minutes long. So I go in there, and I'm talking to Kevin, and what he's doing typically is when his weather's done, he's surfing the web for skateboards and or snowboards. That's his thing. He is the Tony Hawk of weather forecasters.
I did not know this about Kevin.
So anyway, I'm in there, and then I turn to come back because the commercial's almost over. And our floor director, Jen, turns at the same time. And we crack heads like you wouldn't believe. And I saw stars and the lights dimmed. I think we both got concussions. But then I went over and sat down and read the rest of the news. I wasn't the same for several days. Oh, that's not right in the middle of a newscast. Who gets a concussion?
You got a concussion doing the news, in the middle of the news.
I think I read better after the concussion, so that explains my whole situation.
And I'm certain that we really didn't have the concussion protocols back in those days. So I'm certain that I've played at some point or another.
Probably.
And all of my teammates. I mean, we know that Jim McMahon did multiple times. Jim was a teammate. We know that Steve Young had a bunch of concussions.
Sure.
He retired early from the National Football League because of the worry about that.
Well, now you got some good advice though on the tail end of a play from Mike Holmgren that maybe extended your career a little bit.
So this is, I just remember this so plainly because it was so early in my career. I was young quarterback. One of the first times I'd gotten into a game, and 2 things I remember most about this. I dropped back to throw. And when I dropped back, I couldn't see anything downfield. When you're a young guy back there, it's just hard to see downfield. And so I just took off running. And when you're a young player, you just remember how you were in high school.
Right.
When I was in high school, hey, I'm 190 pounds in high school. And if I get past the defensive line, I'm as big as the linebackers and safeties. Like, I'm just going to run somebody over. And so I got to our sideline. And instead of stepping out of bounds, I decided to turn back into the defense. And 240-pound linebacker hit me so hard that I didn't land on the ground until I was about 7 yards out of bounds, right in front of Mike Holmgren. And Mike,
right in front of your quarterback coach.
He grabbed me by the shoulder pads. Mike's a big, strong guy. Yeah. And he picked me up off my feet and put me down. And then he put his face right in my face, and he goes, "What the heck are you doing? You're going to get yourself killed out there. When you get downfield, you either get down or get out of bounds if you want to keep playing this game." I was like, that is very, very good advice.
That's words to live by.
Those same stars I saw Sunday up on campus, I saw those. And that was maybe the first. They were so plentiful that I was actually swiping in front of my hands.
You should name those stars. You've seen them
in front of my hands to get rid of the stars. But I did take that advice. The rest of my career, when I had opportunity to run, you find an open spot, you get what you need to get, you get down, you get out of bounds, and that's what you have to do, or your career is shortened.
My lone year in football, in organized football, came many moons ago in the Orem City Little League Dave Lewis, Chad Lewis's older brother, convinced me to come play. The Cowboys we won one game all year, and it was the last game. But we're playing the Raiders, and there's a play, and I'm a defensive back, and the ref blows the whistle. I take my helmet, and I lift it up over my face. It was hot. Play was over. Mm-hmm. And Alan Whitehead comes in and drills me with his helmet right on my chin.
With your helmet off?
With my helmet off. It was a cheap shot. I think he understands that years later. Anyway.
Do you think Alan might be in on the podcast tonight?
He might.
In on the live stream.
Keep a look on this. Anyway, he hits me there, and my chin just swells up like you explained yours. Man. So I can't even put my chin strap back on. I leave the game. I drive home on my bike. I walk into the kitchen. My mom's in the kitchen. She turns around and she sees my face. And she had told me, "You're going to get hurt playing football. That's why I don't want you to play football." And she looks at me and she goes, "I told you were going to get hurt." And I did get hurt, but what it did was it dented my chin right here. This one is a little bit longer than this one, and it emphasized this dimple right here a little bit more.
Between you,
I made a ton of money on this thing.
You and Bowler Jack, you and Bowler Jack made a living on those dimples in your chin.
And it started with Alan Whitehead. But I didn't appreciate, and I still don't today.
You're giving Alan Whitehead credit.
What about there was a game when I was in San Diego in the seats. You were down there on the field, and BYU was playing Ohio State.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this. We started talking about some of the craziest hits we've ever seen in football. And so this is 1982. We're playing Ohio State in the Holiday Bowl. Ohio State, they finished that season ranked number 12. They were a machine. They were better than 12 at that point.
Yeah.
It's honestly, Dave, it's the only game I've ever been involved in at any level. I'm talking Little League, high school, college, where I just felt like a little bit into the game, we have no chance whatsoever. and this thing, they should run a running clock because we're going to get killed. We're going to lose by 100 if this thing keeps going. We ended up losing 47-17, by the way, and they took it easy on us at the end. But so we're getting beat up pretty bad. I'm the backup quarterback. Steve's the starter, and Steve decides to take off down the field. And he's going, when Steve goes, he's like running upright, and he's flying, running 4-4 down the field, and he decides to cut sideways.
Yeah,
and Ohio State had 2 All-American linebackers that year. So good.
Was Spielman in that group?
Well, was he later? We played against them in '85 against Chris Spielman, who was one of the greats of all time. And we matched up a lot better with Ohio State in '85. We lost a close game to them in '85 in the Citrus Bowl. But this is the '82 team with Tim Spencer at tailback and Von Brodnax at fullback, and Mike Tom Zach was playing quarterback.
Right.
A bunch of All-American offensive linemen. But they had Marcus Merrick, who was a legit All-American, big-time linebacker, and then Glenn Cobb, who was a captain, both like 3 or 4.
And they were cocky from the Big Ten.
But they were so as Steve cuts sideways, Marcus hits him from the backside high, and Glenn hits him from the front side low. And Steve did an aerial cartwheel.
I remember that.
And landed on the side of his head. And here's how violent the hit was. I had my helmet in my hand. By the time Steve hit the ground, I already had my helmet on. Like I was like, he's not.
There's no way.
He will not survive this. Like he's going to be out of this game. In fact, he might be out forever. Like this may be my job moving forward because he was just a junior that year, and we were good that year. We were like, won 8 games that year, but that we were setting the stage for the next year when we lose our opener at Baylor and then not lose for a couple of years, right? Where Steve led us to that win in the Holiday Bowl against Missouri the next year. But I'm thinking he's out. Like he might be out cold. And the thing I remember, I think they had to take the ear pad out of his helmet to get his helmet off because his nose was sticking out of the ear hole. And so Holmgren pulls me over and he says, "Hey,
now you're going in."
Yeah. He's like, "Listen, just be like, this is not what you normally hear. Whole different speech when I'm going into the Holiday Bowl in '84 and the national championship's on the line. When I'm going in there, Mike Holmgren says, listen, we got this. You got this. We'll call I know the plays that you're comfortable with. Norm and I are going to call all the things you're comfortable with. We're going to move the football. We got this. You're going to go win this game for us." Now let's go back to '82. He goes, "Listen, just be careful out there. Like, don't get yourself hurt out there. This is getting crazy out there. And don't do anything stupid." That's all he said.
So you go in.
So I'm going in, and I go out there. I'm like, I got the rest of this game, and we're getting killed. Let's see how fast we can get this thing over. I think I only threw 1 ball in the game. I completed an 11-yard ball in that game. But a couple of plays later, here comes Steve Young running back out on the field, and I'm looking at Steve, and I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, "You're out. I'm in." And I go, "Oh."
He put himself back in.
He came back in, and I ran over to the sidelines, and Holmgren says, "What are you doing?" I said, Steve's back in. He goes, no, the heck he is. Steve's not back in. And I go, no, he's in. He just put himself back in. And Mike goes, well, let's see how that goes. And they just let him play the rest of the way.
He checked himself back in.
Which would never ever happen.
Now they take their helmets, right? They don't even give them the chance.
Your helmet gets taken away, and they hide it or they lock it up someplace, and you don't get back in the game. But yeah, Steve put himself back in.
That's
put
awesome.
himself back in the game. So I played a few plays in the game that I felt like we had the least chance of winning of any game I've ever played in my life.
That was a wicked hit. Hey, Catch, Dr. Catch 1000, what's going on with baseball right now? We'll talk about that a bit later on, but baseball's in Stockton. They play tomorrow night, the first round of the WCC tournament against LMU.
Which, and you know, just touch on it quickly. We just go back a couple weeks ago, and they weren't even in position to be in
they were in
the WCC tournament. You had to be in the top 6. And what a phenomenal run down the stretch for BYU baseball. So we appreciate you asking. We can get into that a little bit more. But they're hitting the ball. The pitching's coming through. And, hey, let's see them do some damage in that tournament.
We got all the headlines from campus we'll get to in just a bit. The theme of the show is Blaine's broken nose. And so we're talking about big hits. And I remember September 15th, 1989. I was the sideline reporter, and you and the great Jay Monson were up in the booth. BYU's playing Washington State. They outscore them 35-7 in the fourth quarter. A big win for Ty Detmer and everybody. The fans storm the field, and I'm down on the field around the 5-yard line. I'm interviewing Rocky Beagle, the linebacker, and you guys throw it down to me, and I ask him a few questions. And then I made a gross error in the world of live sports broadcasting. I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, "Thanks, Rocky. We'll let you go. Congratulations." And he left. And then when he left, all the fans jumped in. And just before my headset was completely ripped off my head, in a violent fashion, might I add, and before I was knocked to the ground, also in a violent fashion, I hear in my headset you and Jay laughing and laughing and laughing. That's the last thing I heard as I went into the other world, was my trusted colleagues watching from above and having a good laugh.
You know what? That's a dangerous job. You feared for getting hurt down there doing that. During the Jimmer's year, I'd have to go around the desk. I'll never forget when he did the San Diego State, when he took over that San Diego State game, two top 5 teams, and Jimmer just went off. I felt like I was interviewing a rock star, and we were worried that the crowd was going to overtake us. They had security all around. I'm like, this is pretty cool, but I did get a little bit nervous there. So, hey, D. Holla 3 told us here that Steve Young hit against Ohio State, if you want to see it, it's at 9:22. The clip is titled "The 1982 Holiday Bowl: Ohio State versus BYU drive-through" on YouTube, and then Dr. Catch 1000 says, "Do you think you get Steve Young to come on live stream?" Yeah, we'll get Steve on.
Absolutely.
There's no question.
We'll get Ty on, Mark Wilson.
We'll have all those guys on. Steve and I are still stay pretty close. Our families are close, and he's been unbelievable to my kids. We'll just say that. And we'll absolutely have Steve on. And Dr. Catch 1000, you said, I guess Steve had a lot of clout to put himself back in the game. Steve didn't have that much clout back in those days. Right. He was a junior. He was just getting going.
He just went in.
Now, by the time he finished up the next year,
he was the guy.
He was the man. But he developed over time, just like everybody else. We always remember the senior Steve Young, the junior and senior Jim McMahon, the junior that was going out, Zach Wilson, the senior Beck, and those guys.
Right, yeah.
But we forget those guys were all like normal human being quarterbacks early in their careers, and we were wondering if they'd ever be great, and they became great, right? So my question for you guys out there, and if you're not on the chat stream, get on there and give us some stuff. But
click the chat button,
because some of you I know are just clicked on the video and you're just watching. That's cool too, and you can have this discussion amongst yourselves at home. But what's the greatest hit you ever remember in football, or especially in BYU football? What's the greatest hit you ever remember? And I
like the greatest, meanest, nastiest hit?
Just the biggest hit you can ever recall. I'd be interested to see what folks that have joined us are thinking on that. What's the best hit you ever saw?
We were looking at Kurt Govea's against Hawaii. That was a good one. The one that sent Young into a helicopter.
Yeah.
That was a good. That wasn't a hit by BYU, but it was a hit where you're like, hit. Whoa, that one's pretty good. I was talking to Gary Scheide this week. I've got a story on him coming out in the Deseret News tomorrow.
Yeah, you were talking to me about
on his legacy.
Story.
And speaking of big hits, so he leads BYU to the Fiesta Bowl in 1974, the first bowl game for the Cougars, and there were only 11 that year, so it was a big deal. They're playing Oklahoma State, getting the second quarter, they're up 6-0, and Phil Dokes, this big, nasty linebacker for Oak State, hits Gary after he threw the ball, drives him into the turf, and tears 2 tendons in his shoulder, and he's done. And then Oklahoma State picks off the backup 3 times, and they win 16-6. And Scheide's career is over. He gets drafted by Bill Walsh and the Bengals in the 3rd round, but he got tendonitis trying to adjust to his throw, and his shoulder wasn't this and that, and all those complications went to that hit. Well, he believes there's a bounty. There was a bounty put on his head.
Wow.
And
I had never heard that.
And he told me that it was confirmed years later by a member of the Oklahoma State Cowboys on that team that said, oh, yeah, somebody put a bounty. Buddy Ryan is the name they tossed around, who played at Oklahoma State and was around, but had put a bounty on Gary, and this guy hit him after the play and drove him into the thing. I don't know what he won, but it changed Gary's collegiate and professional life.
Yeah, I mean, Gary had the skill set to be a big-time NFL quarterback, and Gary's the guy with Lavelle and the staff that he had put in place. Lavelle had made this commitment, and we talked to Lavelle so many times about his thought process, but he changed the game of football, really. By just saying, wait a minute, you don't have to line up and knock people off the ball and run the ball to be successful. You can beat teams, even some that maybe have more talent, by throwing the ball around. Yeah. And Gary, ushered in that era, and then everybody copied what Lavelle Edwards did in college football. So look
for that tomorrow in the Deseret News. How about Bluesville 1? We were talking about this earlier. The biggest hit, Braden El Bakri against San Jose State on a kickoff. We're calling that game.
I love that.
And that helmet sound we could hear up in the booth.
We could hear it all the way up.
And there was just this pause of, is he alive?
Medward one was like, oh, the Ty Detmer splitting I know what he's talking about.
His chin.
So I think he's talking about when they're playing Miami, Ty Detmer's dropped back to pass. Both defensive ends are coming full speed from each side. And at the very last second, he just has this sense, and he steps up, and the 2 defenders collision each other, and then Ty throws a touchdown pass. And so he's saying a hit of, I think he's talking about the hit.
Those 2 guys banging
hitting together. And then Medward one says, how about the punter against Boise State? So he's also referring, that's the Matt Payne.
Right.
And if you remember the Matt Payne hit, that was the #1 play. This was now in the Sports Center era, and it was the #1 play of the day. They did the back-to-back hits. He had 2 hits in that game, and it's just like a kicker or a punter is not. He killed those guys.
Yeah,
it was they should have arrested him for assault in that game against Boise State.
It's interesting, and we're going to run through some names here, and a lot of these guys are going to be on this show as we move through the months and years, but it's interesting to see how injuries have kick-started the career of some of the biggest quarterbacks that have ever played at BYU. And let's go back to, we talked about Scheide, but Gifford Nielsen is rolling along, a Heisman candidate. He gets hurt in 77, and Mark Wilson comes in and throws 7 touchdowns against Colorado State in his first appearance as a BYU quarterback. So Giff went out, Wilson came in, and then all of a sudden, I think we're going to be all right. We got Mark Wilson.
Well, and Giff went on, still had a great NFL career.
Yeah.
And Giff's doing phenomenal things today, as we know, as a member of the first quorum of the 70 and a good friend of ours. Right. But that injury to Giff ushered in the Mark Wilson era, and it didn't go so good the next week.
No, he set another record.
Yeah, but he threw some interceptions. But Mark ended up being a first-round draft pick and a starter for the Raiders, and then Wilson and McMahon shared time in 78.
But then McMahon gets hurt in 81.
So Mark didn't get hurt. So Mark had a relatively healthy career. And then Jim redshirted. I know that Jim didn't want a redshirt. He and I have had that conversation many times. He was so mad at Lavelle. And Lavelle had this really difficult decision to make. He's like, wait a minute, I think I have 2 first-round draft pick quarterbacks. And so what do I do? I've got to get another year of separation between them. Jim's the younger, even though he's phenomenal. I'm going to redshirt Jim. Mark's going to come back and be amazing. Remember, Mark right after appendicitis comes out and beats Texas A&M on the road.
Yeah, went 11-1.
Ends up being a first-round draft pick. I'll never forget that San Diego State game where he started the game 3 for 3, 3 touchdowns. I don't know, 100 and something yards. I was like, yeah, that's how you do it. But then Jim comes back from his redshirt year and breaks like 76 NCAA records his junior year. And it was almost like, yeah, I'm going to show you guys that I shouldn't have redshirted. But it ended up being great for the program. It ended up being great for Jim. And then Jim's a first-round draft pick and goes on with the Bears.
So then in 81, Jim gets hurt, and this guy comes in who's a lefty. And we're like, what's this? I remember sitting there on the 10th row with my brothers going, who is this? And BYU struggled against Utah State. I think beat them 32-26 or something. And Steve would just take off running all the time. We're like, is this our future? We're dead if this is our future. And then McMahon came back, and then Young had his time. But that's where we were introduced to Steve Young. Jim McMahon's injured tonight. Steve Young's at quarterback. Who is this guy?
Yeah, and he played a couple of games, and Ted Tollner and I were talking, and Ted Tollner was the quarterback's coach for just Jim's senior year. That was my freshman year. And they were ready to move Steve Young to defensive back. He's so athletic, unbelievably athlete. And the old quarterback coach, he just didn't have any interest in the left-handed quarterback. I mean, that was the biggest thing. And Steve was kind of a running, throwing quarterback and didn't want to invest the time, Doug Scoville, in developing Steve. But Ted came in, and Ted goes, if I don't come to BYU, there's no Steve Young. And I got thinking about it. He's right.
Right.
Because he really took a liking to Steve, and he loved Steve's work ethic, and he loved his mechanics. And he's like, I need to give this kid a shot because he's willing to work and be coached. So he went to Lavelle and said, let's let him play quarterback. He wants to play quarterback. Lavelle says, okay. And Steve, he's of all athletes I've ever been affiliated with, watched, covered in broadcasting, played with, going from here to here, I've never seen anybody develop their craft like Steve Young did, and he never stopped. Till the day he retired, that guy worked at it. Unbelievable. Just getting better every time he stepped on the practice field or in the game field. But he filled in for those 2 games. We saw some glimpses of his running ability, and then he honed his passing game and became a great player.
Well, in 82, so he gets hurt in the bowl game, you come in. Then Robbie Bosco comes along, and we get into the Michigan game for the national championship. He gets hurt, and you're back in. And this now you were back in thinking, one, you ran a bunch of plays, and you're not quite sure he's coming back.
Yeah, honestly, I would check with Robbie in between series. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, are you coming back or what? I don't think so, man. I don't think so. And Robbie and I were close, very, very close.
And the team's undefeated. Yeah, you win, you're going to be number 1.
Chris Gurman and Robbie Bosco and I were like the 3 musketeers our freshman year together. It was our kicker and Robbie and I. Robbie and I were roommates. And so I'm like, are you going to come in or not? I need to know like what mindset I need to have. And he just wasn't sure he was going to be able to come back in. He took a late hit from Mike Hammerstein, the All-American defensive lineman from Michigan, injured his knee, and Holmgren, and it was very different conversations than in 82 because we were going to go win this game.
Yeah.
And to us, it was like, doesn't matter whether Rob's playing or I'm playing. The defense is going to play great. We're going to go win this game. We're going to win a national championship. Very different circumstances in that one. But that was, me going in 82, nobody even remembers I got in that Holiday Bowl in 82 against Ohio State.
But they do remember 84.
But people remember that game because that game mattered, right? Yeah. And we had to keep it going.
So you get in the huddle, and we've told this story before, which is awesome. You get in the huddle, and who was it? Bellini or somebody tells you they're wide open.
Kozlowski says to me, he leans over and he goes, dude, I'm open on every single play. and I was like, okay. And Bellini stands, so the receivers end up they're on both sides as you're coming into the huddle, and Glenn steps up to me like this. And then Mark Bellini on the other side, he goes, that is a bunch of crap. I'm open on every single play.
Everybody's open.
And then David Miles, our tight end, goes, tight end is the guy that's open on every single play.
It's nice that they're also free with their...
I was just like, you know what? I guess I better just read the defense because everybody in this huddle is lying right now.
Yeah, we should have had 50 points. Everyone's so wide open.
Everybody was lying. But what a great group of receivers we had.
And you got it done, and then Bosco did come in, and the Karate Kid, he won the game.
Yep, and Robbie comes in and throws a phenomenal ball to Kelly Smith, a game-winning throw where he had to step up in the pocket and avoid a rush and hit Kelly, who one of the great receivers of all time coming out of the backfield, sure-handed, and just understood defenses. And, yeah, it was great. It was great. So, but that game, because Robbie got hurt and I played in the spotlight in a big game on national television that mattered, all of a sudden people knew who I was. And then the next year, Robbie was, in and out. He had, there were games where he was hurt and couldn't play almost the whole game. He had his shoulder jacked up. So I played almost the whole Utah State game, the whole Colorado State game, and a lot more playing time, which allowed me to have a little bit of a legacy here. Not like Robbie's legacy or Steve's or these guys, but Robbie going down and him getting smacked allowed me to have a little bit of playing time.
So there's a running theme here we've established now. Now fast forward to 1988 over at Wyoming. Sean Covey gets a concussion, and in comes redshirt freshman Ty Detmer for the first time. And it didn't go so well for him. He threw 4 picks in the second half. He got sacked 5 times, and BYU, I think, lost by 10. But as I remember, as we're watching this, there was something to Ty that gave everyone hope despite what they were watching. And then he turned out okay.
Because he was young, and young guys try to push the ball in places where it shouldn't go, and that's a common theme. When BYU's had to play young guys, they struggle a little bit, and then some of them never recovered from that. Some of BYU's quarterbacks that came in with a lot of hype and a lot of success in high school that had to play, in my opinion, too early, they never recovered from that. And others learned from that. Ty Detmer learned from that. He's a quick study. Ty's one of the smartest players that's ever played the position, period. And you can talk to the guys he played with in the NFL. You go talk to Brett Favre, or you talk to any of those guys that he played with, and they're like, oh, man. Ty is just...
He had to teach Brett Favre what the nickel defense was.
What's a nickel defense? Brett didn't know. Ty told me a funny story about they were in a really clutch period of a game when the defense was out and needed to get a stop, or if they didn't get a stop and the offense scored, Brett would have to go back out and engineer. It was an important game. Engineer a drive, and they'd have to win it. And Ty's like thinking, okay, if they do score, this is what we need to do. And he's going to have this word. He's standing right next to Favre. And the other team scores, and he looks over to Brett, and he's going to say something about, I think this is what they're going to do. And Brett says, are we still going bird hunting on Thursday, or what are we going to do? And Ty's like, you know what? I just don't think I need to worry about Brett right now. He's just going to go out and sling it. And Brett just went out and he just slinged it.
Yeah, he slinged it.
And they won the game and everything was fine.
So Ty comes in because Covey got hurt. And then you go to 2000. Brett Engelman gets hurt at Syracuse. Mm-hmm. And that opens the door for Brandon Dolman, who was dead on the bench, 4th string, 5th string, never even got a look.
They wanted to move him to wide receiver.
Yeah, and now he's in, and then he makes his first start in Lavelle's final home game.
Yes.
You can't lose that game.
No.
Against New Mexico. And then he goes up to Salt Lake and beats the Utes in Lavelle's final game against Utes. So you can't lose that game either. And then all of a sudden he becomes Superman.
Yeah, and there was Superman and Robin. I don't know which one was which, but between Luke
Staley. And he got Reno Mahe in there.
Luke Staley and Doman and Reno Mahe at wide receiver. You throw a screen to Reno Mahe, he could make the whole other team miss.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I had a telestrator one of the years that Reno was playing, and I started to telestrate a screen that they threw to him. And I'm like, here's the thing I want you guys to all watch. He made 6 people miss, but he really only made 5 people miss because the first guy that missed him got back up and chased him down. Then he made him miss him again. So one guy missed him twice, and he scored a touchdown on a screen pass. So Brandon and that team, you talk about the skill guys on that team. Wow.
Yeah.
But Brandon doesn't get that opportunity if Brett doesn't go out.
Right.
And all of a sudden Brandon comes in.
And then go to 2003, and Matt Berry, remember him, breaks his hand. In comes John Beck.
Yeah. And John was one of those guys where he was pressed into action way too soon, and he was turning the ball over a little bit. And I'm thinking, man, are we going to, because this guy has such a great arm, we're going to ruin this guy by making him play. But John mentally was so unbelievably tough that every time he made a mistake, he learned from that mistake, and he just got better and better. You could put John right at his senior year. You can put John back up with any quarterback that's played here, with the way he managed the game and the throws that he made, in his leadership, just unquestioned, and the great approach that he had to the game. And that's carried over to today.
Yeah.
For John, is he's one of the top quarterback coaching gurus in all of football. He's got NFL guys lining up to coach him. He did magic with Zach Wilson. He's got a big group of college quarterbacks lined up to work with him. he's a phenomenal talent still because of his knowledge and understanding of the game. And early on, I was wondering if the guy could even play.
Yeah.
Because he had played kind of too early. Turning the ball over, fumbling, throwing, but man, did
when
that
he was
change.
done.
Man, did that change.
And he and Max Hall, Max stayed healthy too for the most part. But then we get into 2014. Here comes Taysom Hill, and we have 3 seasons of Taysom, and then the backup Christian Stewart gets to play because Taysom goes down, and we're like, well, can Christian Stewart play? Yes, he can.
Yeah. Here's the thing that people don't understand. There's BYU when they're good, they always have depth at quarterback. And Christian Stewart came in, and we're like, who's this guy? This guy's slinging it all over the place, and he played great in relief for Taysom Hill. And that was going to be a theme because guys were going to have to play great because Taysom was going to have this series of just remarkable, crazy, fluky injuries.
Yeah.
That just didn't make sense.
Like 2015, we're there in Lincoln, and Taysom is hammering Nebraska in front of all those Cornhusker fans, and then a whole bunch of blue folks that were sitting up in the corner who we had a chance to visit with. And then and he gets hurt, Liz Frank injury, and now all of a sudden Tanner Mangum's in the game. And Mangum throws a Hail Mary pass, and BYU gets one of their biggest road wins ever. You and I were there for that.
Yeah,
in the end zone.
We were right there on the end zone line, looking down the line, and I remember when he threw that up, and he caught the ball. You and I looked at each other, and we both went, "Did he get the football past the line?"
Yeah,
because he was right on the front of the line, and we weren't sure they did. And then they signaled touchdown, and
there was pandemonium because there were a lot of BYU fans, and there was shock with the big red, and we were looking there going, did that just happen? And what I remember after all of that, we are interviewing Tanner Mangum live on BYU TV, and then that's when we got word that Taysom's season was over.
Yep,
and then Tanner reacted to the news as we visited with him about it. And so there was the euphoria just a moment ago, and then we liked Taysom so much that there was just you've got to be kidding me. He fought all the way back from an injury, and now he's out again.
Oh, yeah. You just felt for Taysom because you would watch how hard he would work in the off season, and just one injury after another, and you felt really, really bad for him. But Tanner came in, had a couple of big time Hail Mary plays, and
Boise State the next week
did the same thing.
Well, then Taysom comes back, and then he gets hurt again, and it's Mangum going into the Poinsettia Bowl against Wyoming, and Mangum wins that game. So there was kind of we were always going to get to know Taysom's backup, unfortunately, the way that went.
Guys
and then it would continue with Mangum.
Yep, we're gone with Mangum. Hey, I'm looking at the chat as this is coming up. It's somebody says, Bluesville asked us, have injuries increased in today's era of ball? The athletes are better conditioned, and they're more careful. And I don't know that they've increased. And I don't have any data to support that. I think football's always been a violent game. Yeah. I think there's far fewer concussions. I think they pay way more attention to concussion protocols and that kind of thing.
We do know that Kalani plays way fewer return missionaries.
Right.
Because of the injuries.
Some guys are saying, hey, did you see Paul Lasike's rugby hit against Navy? I do remember that.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Nasty without equipment on even. And Medward one was saying the Jamal Willis sweep Mo Eloanibi. So Mo was an Outland Trophy winner. I'm assuming he's saying Jamal was on a sweep and Mo was the polling guard and just buried somebody.
Probably mowed someone.
That's kind of a fun one.
Well, look, as we get into the modern era of where we're at, Mangum gets hurt in 2017. We see Bo Hodge. He gets hurt. In comes Joe Critchlow. And now we're like, what is going on here?
You remember BYU played 4 quarterbacks in the game at Utah State.
Yeah.
And I was up on the sideline of that game just thinking, how's this even happening? You've got to be kidding me.
Well, then the theme continues because you got Zach Wilson. He gets hurt. Jaron Hall comes in. He gets hurt. And Baylor Romney comes in. This is all in 2019.
Yeah. And the fun part about you hate to see guys get hurt. The fun part was people were like, Baylor Romney's the third string guy. Baylor Romney has a legacy here.
Yeah.
People are like, that dude can play. He could have started for a lot of P5 programs around the country, and he proved that on the field by going out and winning football games. All Baylor Romney ever did was go in and win games.
Yeah. And it didn't matter who he was playing. Last year, same kind of thing. Hall gets banged up with his ribs, gets him aggravated, broke him in against Arizona, beat the Utes with broken ribs, and then is beating Arizona State with broken ribs. He's out, and Baylor comes in, first pass without even warming up, throws a touchdown to Isaac Rex.
Yeah, don't even worry about it. Baylor's just like, don't even worry about it. And I have a special spot in my heart for Baylor because he wore my old number. He wore 16. I'd always say to him, Baylor, hey, go represent 1-6. And he did.
Yeah.
He represented 1-6 in an unbelievable way. And, he proved. Very unselfish player, team guy all the way. He's retired from football now. And, hey, BYU's going to miss him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was a known commodity. And if you got Zach hurt or you get Jaron hurt, people didn't worry. The team didn't worry. They're like, doesn't matter. We got Baylor Romney. He'll go out and get the job done. There's something to be said for that.
That leads us to the
contribution.
To the big question. This is the question we get asked the most here in the off season is, if something were to happen to Hall this season, who then would be the guy to play? Would it be Jacob Conover? Would it be Cade Finnegan? Do they need to find someone else as they move towards the Big Ten? What do you think? Or Big 12?
The two that you just mentioned, Jacob Conover and Finnegan, and most people aren't familiar. They're more familiar with Jacob Conover. Jacob Conover was a big-time recruit coming out of high school, out of Arizona. Won a ton of games and was one of the top quarterbacks in the country. And I love his skill set. He's talented. Yeah. He's got great arm talent. Big time arm, can make all the throws. Very athletic. He's a guy like he's like 6'1"ish. And if you go watch him play pickup basketball in the field house, he'll take the ball baseline and in a game rise up and two-hand throw down dunk on people. So he's crazy athletic. People don't understand how athletic he is. He's been a winner his entire career, and he's like these other, like when he got in a game, he's just young, right? So
Utah State, he got in.
Decision making is going to be suspect at that age. It just is. I don't care how good you are. Decision making is going to be questionable at first. So I think he has the capability to be good. Now with Baylor, they didn't need to. They did their best to develop these guys without playing him in games. But now he's going to get some game time, and I think he has potential to be very good. Cade Finnegan's the one that nobody really knows about, but this is the guy that said no to USC. Yeah, and big time player out of Texas.
At Boise State, played against BYU.
That's right. He got right off of a mission when he hadn't had any reps, and he played pretty well.
They were down 2 quarterbacks, and next thing you know, he's in the game against the team he always dreamed of playing for. Yeah, and now he's got to go out there and try to beat them, and they were getting whooped.
Well, he has a really good. He can really spin the football too. Like he's got a beautiful release. Mechanics are good. He's more of a drop back guy. He's played in pocket programs where he drops back 5-step drops and throws. Where Jacob's been more of a gun guy, quick throw release. Either of them will be able to adapt to whatever Aaron wants to do with him when it comes their time. And I think they'll adjust the offense a little bit based on that skill set. But Finnegan had transferred down. I wasn't sure what his number was. I was out. And I walked down to watch the defense. This is last fall. Yeah. And I didn't even think about Finnegan because I knew he had transferred. I didn't even think about it. I had my buddy Tony Givens with me visiting from New York, an old teammate from high school. And we walked down because Gavin's was coaching the defensive backs. And we went down to watch Gavin coach a little bit. And we're watching.
Gavin's your son.
Yeah, Gavin's our son that coaching outside linebackers this year with Kalani. But I'm watching this kid that's playing the prep quarterback, and he's just literally throwing BBs all over the yard. Like he's like throwing 17-yard comebacks and streaks. I'm like, who is this kid? So they have a little break, and Gavin comes over to say hi to Tony, and I go, okay, Gav, Tony and I want to know who that guy is. And he goes, oh, that's Cade Finnegan. I'm like, oh, that makes sense to me now. Now that makes sense. He looked every bit the part. Like his skill set is very good. People just don't know about him. He was a fairly highly recruited guy. When he made the announcement that he was going to serve a mission first, some big time programs kind of like, we're not interested in that. We're not interested.
And Ty had gone to his house and said, hey, we got Dinkelman coming in, we've got Zach coming in, and they weren't going to offer another quarterback. But Ty went to the house, who was a former teammate of his dad, and just was kind of honest with him and said, hey, so he goes to North Texas because Grant Harrell,
right?
Who then leaves North Texas and goes to USC, and that was the connection of why USC won.
Exactly, and it was interesting because Boise State had offered him, and he felt like that's a big program that's had some really good quarterbacks. Kellen Moore came through there, and they've had some good guys. That's a great program. That's a winning program. I'm going to commit to those guys. They're the ones that are committing to me. Let me go do this. And when Graham Harrell got to SC, he's off on his mission, and they're contacting through his dad, and they're just saying like, hey, we want him down here now.
Yeah.
And Kate's just like, you know what? I know it's USC and everything, but I committed to Boise State. That's where I'm going. And so he goes to Boise State, and then remember, their coaching staff changed. I believe
they went to Auburn.
If their coaching staff doesn't change, he's such a committed kid. I don't think he transfers. He stays and lives out his commitment. But now that left him open. And BYU now had seen him, and BYU's like, yeah, we need some depth. We need somebody to compete when Jaron's gone. And in comes Cade Finnegan. So don't sleep on Cade Finnegan.
Right.
I think one of those two guys is going to be really, really good.
Which games? Here's the question, because the Big 12 is just around the corner. Mm-hmm. So as you look at this schedule, Jaron Hall, if he's healthy, he's elite, and BYU's going to have a great season.
Could be a first-round draft.
So what game or games do you look at and go, well, maybe Finnegan or Conover could get some time against Wyoming? Wyoming's different against Utah State. Utah State's different.
Utah State's good.
There's Utah Tech good on there. They can't all play at the same time against Utah Tech, but where else are they going to get it?
Liberty's good.
Yeah.
Like you look at these schools that are not the big name schools, and they're all good. You look at Stanford and go, well, Stanford's been down. Stanford's not going to be down forever. They got athletes, right? Yeah. They recruit well.
And that's a game where you want Jaron Hall healthy, because who knows where you'll be in the polls and all that. So
what you need to do is this offense needs to be as prolific as we all think it can be, because they're loaded at every position across the board. Like I look at BYU's offense going into the fall, and I literally can't find a weakness in this football team.
Certainly not up front or in the receiving core or at the quarterback,
tight ends,
or at the running
backs. There's just nothing. There's no weakness. So they need to live up to their potential. Yeah. And part of living up to the potential is being the top 10 in the country in scoring offense and total offense. And if you do that, this defense, I think, will be good enough that against some of these teams,
you got to pound them.
Late in games, they'll pull away. And if they pull away late in games, you've got to get these guys. You have to have a decided effort to get these guys into ball games.
Because you can't have a rookie going into the Big 12. And Jaron Hall could come back. We're just assuming he's going to be great and move on to the NFL, but he's got a year of eligibility where he could go into the Big 12 with BYU. But we're kind of looking at what everyone else is thinking over there, and that's, if he has a good year, he's out to try and get a job.
Yep.
So these two guys or whoever else, and we see a couple of comments here about got to go to the portal to get an elite quarterback. One of these two guys could be the elite quarterback, because you heard all those names we just walked through.
Yeah, so wait a minute. Jacob Conover was recruited by Arizona State,
Alabama,
and all these schools, said no to Nick Saban. We just told you that Cade Finnegan said no to USC. So what do you talk about an elite quarterback?
Right.
Those are elite quarterbacks. They just need to develop. Bluesville 1 says, what's the chat info? Comments on Ryder Burton from Springville. And he's a special player. And sometimes
he'll be a true freshman.
Yeah, sometimes you look at guys, and he's got all the tools. Like, he's a big, strong guy with a big, strong arm, tremendous work ethic, great leader. And so a guy like Ryder Burton, but Ryder Burton's a mission kid.
Yeah.
Right? So he's a few years away. And so just like Cade Finnegan, you forget about Cade Finnegan because it's been how many years since he came out? Everybody's really excited about him when he came out. We're not going to transition to basketball right now, but people are like, wait, who these guys are coming back from missions? The Hall kid.
Yeah, are they good?
The
I can't remember quite
them. Toulson was the player of the year in the state of Washington.
Hall was the player of the year in Utah.
And they were dominating, and all the Pac-12 schools were recruiting him. And you just forget. When these kids go on missions, you forget how good they were. So let's not forget about Ryder Burton, because they're recruiting him because they think he can play in the Big 12 and be a guy.
If there's a common denominator in all these quarterback maneuvers that have been successful, especially through the glory years that you were a part of, there was a giant offensive line. Yep. And right now, no matter who the quarterback is, you could even come back out of retirement and play behind this offensive line.
My hamstrings might hold up behind these guys because I wouldn't have to go running around.
You need a nose guard because we have to work on that.
This is an issue.
But the offensive line and the receiving core is built to make whoever is quarterback look good, and Jaron Hall has the opportunity to look great.
And what BYU's been able to do now in recent years as well, they're attracting some pretty talented running backs to come play. And if I'm recruiting a running back right now, you don't think that Brooks, when he was looking at where he could transfer, he's a proven commodity. He was a starter in the Pac-12, his leading rusher at Cal last year. He's looking around, and BYU's saying, hey, oh, by the way, why don't you come play with us? Our last guy is in the NFL, or is going to be in the NFL. Our guy right before him, he's been a starter in the NFL. So we have this tradition of guys. And, oh, by the way, in our 2 deep, our 10 guys on the offensive line, we probably got 6 or 7 guys that are going to play in the NFL. Well, maybe that's an example, but 5. Yep. They probably have 5 guys that are bona fide NFL guys, and we haven't had that in a long time at BYU. And so I think when you're going to recruit running backs, you say, look at the running backs that have played here and look at what's now been reestablished up front. And that's just going to perpetuate itself now. They're getting monsters, and they pivoted in who they were recruiting. They started to go get longer, taller, better athletes that they knew would go on missions, come back, fill out. And I think at left tackle, Blake Freeland's a perfect example of this. Blake Freeland played quarterback in high school. It's like a 6'7", 220, 30 pound quarterback. Now Blake Freeland is a 6'8", 315 pound lean. Go watch a highlight film of Blake Freeland.
And did we not see the other day a projection of him like being in the top 5?
The number 5 pick, the number 1
overall
offensive lineman picked in the draft. Number 1 offensive lineman. And he has that potential. He needs to stay healthy. He needs to continue to get better. But his skills, and that's kind of the recruiting mantra now, is let's go get these long, really athletic guys. And when you're recruiting those guys, then you can go recruit running backs.
Yeah.
And then you can make quarterbacks look good because they don't have people in their face.
Think about Jamal Williams and Taysom Hill. They're running behind Tijon Karoma. Now, everyone loves Tijon. He gave everything he had to BYU. But Tijon was barely 5'8", maybe 5'9", and 280, maybe 290 on a good day. And that was the starting center. And Connor Pay is the starting center this year. He is 6'5", and I think 315, 320. That's the center that Christopher Brooks is going to run behind.
Right.
It's amazing what Taysom and Jamal did with their offensive line, which was good, but it's nowhere near the size of this offensive line. And so you look at Christopher Brooks, you go, why not run for 1,000 yards? Tyson Williams, who signed with the Colts today, he looked at BYU, and he was a big part of the win against USC, ran for 99 yards, big part of the win in double overtime at Tennessee, and then he blew out his knee in the 4th game against Washington. But here's another running back going, I'm not from there, not from the culture. I don't even know anything about it except I know the coach, I know the program. That line looks good. It's fun. I had a great visit. I want to run with those guys.
And when they come on campus, whether they're members of the predominant faith or not, they feel the family atmosphere that Kalani's created, and that's not evident in every program you go to visit. And part of the recruiting pitch is former guys like Tyson and Jamal and these guys. They'd be the first to tell you, hey, even if you don't make it you go talk to the bunch of guys that came through the program that aren't in the NFL, but that came here and were from inner city in California or someplace, and they would tell you, man, I was unbelievably marketable in the job market when I came out because I'm not just like everybody up there, but I went to a predominantly a university that's predominantly members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I graduated from that university. I got a first-class education, and I figured out how to fit in there and compete on the athletic field. And people are going, that's different than the dude that went to San Diego State.
Yeah.
He's different than those guys. And I want him to work for my company. And so BYU's selling that in the recruiting process. Mark Pope's selling the same thing on the other side. Come be different here. And if you're of any type of faith, like you and I were talking about this during basketball season about the number of Muslims that are on the basketball team right now.
Yeah, Tiki and Foos.
And if you talk to Tiki or Foos, they'd tell you, is there a better school in the United States of America to play if you're a Muslim? Like, is there a school that's going to respect your religious faith any better than BYU?
And be safe, and practice your faith,
and be able to, a school that's going to go, we respect your faith, and we're going to make sure we make accommodations. You can worship the way that you want to worship, because we have a great respect for religion. That's what they're finding out. You're not going to get that everywhere you go.
And I think they hold their worship services in the Wilkinson Center, where it's been, designed for that, and Mark Pope sells that. Says, hey, we need good people to come here and play and represent the university. They need to be really good basketball players. They need to be of high character, and you don't necessarily have to be a returned missionary or a Latter-day Saint. But if you play within the rules, so to speak, you can flourish. And Matt Harms and Alex Marcello and the whole slew of them that have come through, great examples.
Who committed. But it's interesting to me. There's been a conscious decision in all of the programs, but especially there were two really visible programs, men's basketball and football, where they just said, this isn't a situation where we apologize for who we are out on the recruiting trail. It's like, we need to emphasize who we are and how we're different, and how if you're a kid that wants to be good and exercise your faith, even if you're not Mormon, this is the place for you.
Absolutely.
And they're winning doing that, and they're getting good kids. Now, of course, we can't move off the injury replacement story without mentioning probably the biggest in the history of all of football. It had nothing to do with BYU, but Drew Bledsoe goes out years ago. Yeah. Tom Brady comes in, and he's still in and playing again for Tampa Bay. He's still in.
That's the biggest. Hey, be ready. It didn't work out for Bledsoe because he couldn't get his job back.
Right.
But you get hurt, you go out. Next guy up, he comes in, and he just might be the next Tom Brady, and he's made a lot of coaches very happy.
Yeah, you're right. That's definitely the best injury replacement story in the history of any sport, isn't it?
I think so.
Tom's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time in the history of professional football.
So look at our set here. We got ready. We're ready for the Big 12, July 1st, 2023. You don't see Oklahoma and Texas up there because they're leaving. So they might hang around for 2 years, but that doesn't get them on this show. They're not the staples, but we got a cool looking set here, and so our goal with this show, as we take a moment and kind of introduce ourselves, is we want to gather the largest group of BYU fans around the world. And on Tuesday nights, we're going to have a live stream here, and we'll visit with each other. You can talk back and forth to each other. You can ask us questions. It's easy through Twitch. You just go click on the monitor, a little box there, and it'll sign you up for Twitch, which is free. But what Twitch does is allows you and us to just interact one with another, or you can just watch the live stream and do all that stuff. Yeah. But we're fishing with our nets here. We're looking for the big haul of. We've traveled with BYU for years, and wherever we go, folks line up to talk with us, not because we're great, but because we're connected to what they love, which is BYU. And this is a chance to do that from Singapore, from China, from Springville.
Yeah, and we want to take you behind the scenes and tell some of the stories that and it's not going to change what we're doing with our roles with BYU TV either. We're going to continue to do all of that, our after further review shows and our countdown to kickoff and post game lives and our co-hosting with Sports Nation and appearances on Sports Nation. We love those platforms, but those platforms sometimes don't allow us to go. And I mean, think about it. You just started a conversation, Dave, about big hits because of my nose. And an hour later, we've broken down every big hit that everybody can think of.
And I'm still staring at that tape on your nose.
And injuries and how it's... So we can go deep on some of these topics, and we can reminisce and talk about some of the experiences that we've had and to a much, much greater and much deeper level than we can when we're doing a half an hour or an hour-long television show, which has commercial breaks, video to roll. And as we evolve here... We're going to figure out how to maybe post some video that we can watch. We want more of your interaction as things move forward.
And there'll be a podcast from this, and it'll be everywhere. on social media. And as we get closer, after further review comes back on July 26th, then we're in. The team reports the next week.
Right.
And so we're here on Tuesday night to tell you what's going on at practice, who's doing what. This is after further review, so you can even talk to us about what you saw on the show. And then, of course, countdown to kickoff and all that stuff. Media day for the football team, that's coming up June 22nd, so that's just around the corner. 9 weeks from tonight, after further review is back. And then it's the season we love. And so this is kind of the place to hang out as we get ready for games.
Yeah, and you know what we'll do? We'll have regular guests. The first little bit here, we're just trying to establish and get the word out and let people know where we're at. And as we build the viewership, so help us build the viewership so I can make a call to Steve Young.
Yeah. And
say, hey, Steve, we've got all these guys that want to hear from you and can come on the show with us, and we'll bring Steve. If he's in town, and we can probably get Steve to come in studio. We'll reach out to our friends. We'll get Danny Ainge to come in. We'll ask Danny if he'll come in and join us. And maybe I bet we can convince Ryan Smith to come in, the owner of the Jazz, and come in and visit with us.
Ty Detmer's already committed. Mark Wilson.
We'll get Chad Lewis on here, and we'll see if we can't get some of our guys that are in the National Football League to come. I can reach out to Zach and see if he's got time. Maybe not during the season, but hey, maybe during the season.
It's just an opportunity for you to, in our live stream, interact with all these characters, and we're kind of the liaison of what's going on with football and basketball and stuff. And so I think it's going to be awesome. We've been talking about doing this for a long, long time, and we're finally here. We're not going away, and when BYU joins the Big 12 and that first football game, by the way, we'll know the schedule in October for next season. Things are going to be off the wall when that schedule comes out. But then we're getting into the Big 12, and it's a game changer across the board for just about everything. And it's going to take BYU into the Midwest like never before, and we look forward to all those markets joining us as their teams play our team, and we just have this global exchange. Should be cool.
It should be really fun. And I'm looking at the chat. People are talking about, hey, can we do some Big 12? I want to know about the quarterbacks we're going to be facing. We'll get, as we get closer to the season here in the next couple of weeks, we'll start to do some breakdowns. We're gonna do our best to give you a season preview, and we'll do some position by position breakdowns for BYU football going into the fall. We'll talk about the teams that they're going to face, and what their strengths are and how BYU matches up with those. The other thing that we'd like to do is have some watch parties with you guys. Right. So the thought behind that, and you guys can tell us what you think about this. Let's say that BYU in a week or so is going to play Utah State. And this week, Utah State's playing a Thursday night game
against Alabama, who they open with
on ESPN. We may send out a thing saying, hey, why don't you guys watch the game with us? Maybe bring some fans here into the studio with us, watch the game with us. We'll watch the game together. You guys watch the game, we'll watch the game, and we'll kind of do a scouting report as we watch the game. Maybe we take the first half of the game and we take that opportunity as a group, as a community, to scout the Aggies.
Come up with a game plan. Then we'll send it to Kalani.
And we'll, Kalani lives around the corner from me, and we'll
say, hey, we came up with some ideas.
We'll say, listen, we had some fans in the studio, and we watched Utah State game, and this is what we think you guys should do.
The wise guys and their throng of followers have come up with a game plan for South Florida. I think he would accept that with open arms. I don't know if he'd read it, but he would accept it, and so that would be a start. So we got a lot of fun things ahead. Let's take a moment and run down what's going on campus for those of you who, and we'll have this regular too as to what's going on. So for those of you who aren't here and see the local news or local radio, can kind of get tuned in. It's the week of the baseball tournament. The WCC tournament, first one in a couple of years because of COVID. In fact, the last team to win it was LMU, and the team before that it was BYU, and those teams meet Wednesday night in the late game there in Stockton, California. Trent Pratt's done a nice job since replacing Mike Littlewood, who resigned during the season, and they got to decide what they want to do with coach there. Has Trent done enough to get the head job? That remains to be seen, but the ball game's on the BYU Radio app. You can listen to tomorrow night with Jason Shepard down there. Colin, what do you think about that head coaching spot for baseball?
I think Trent's done a phenomenal job. That's not an easy situation to just kind of pick up. What I look for is how do the players respond to an interim coach? And do they, as you watch them, does it seem like they've got great confidence? And obviously, he's been a big part of recruiting these guys. And so I've been impressed. I've been impressed with the confidence they seem to have. And think about this. They've been on a heck of a run here down the stretch. As we mentioned, they were sitting just outside of tournament position at 7.
And they've won 11 of 13.
Just a couple weeks ago. And now they've won 11 of their last 13, went on a great run, their longest win streak of the season. And they go into this tournament as the 4 seed. So there's not much you can say.
And I don't know how big the coaching pool is of candidates for a head baseball job. I'll be honest, I haven't spent a lot of time in my life thinking about it. Mike Littlewood was here for 10 seasons. And before that, Vance Law was here for a long time. So it's not like been on everybody's mind. I don't know how deep the pool is, but Trent Pratt has deserved to get a legitimate look as they move forward.
Absolutely. Hey, I said I want to hear some of the guys on chat said, "Hey, I'll bring the popcorn." So I think that means thumbs up to do some watch parties.
Not the cheap stuff. Not the cheap stuff. We're going to want some butter on that.
Another person said, seems like a lot of the games will happen the same day as BYU games, though, this is not something we do every week. It's going to have to match up perfectly.
Like it'd be a Friday or Thursday.
Yeah, exactly.
As we look at that. We'll give you plenty of heads up. In fact, early on, I think this week we're supposed to get the TV info and game times for like the first month of the season.
And here's the thing. Several people have said, hey, what about if I have a conflict with that or with this? We prefer to have you here on the live stream every time that you can, because then you can interact. And we want you to click that chat, sign up for Twitch free, so that we can interact with you and read the things that you're saying. But if you can't, that doesn't mean you're going to miss it completely.
You
can go back and rewatch it anytime, stream it anytime. Just go to ysguys.com, click on it, and watch it at your leisure. Watch part of it, watch another part of it. We're going to repurpose it as a podcast. And where's that? Where are we going to put the podcast? It's going to be wherever you get your podcasts. Right. You just see, ysguys.com.
The hub is ysguys.com, and then that'll get you everywhere. And we're looking forward to that. Third baseman, Austin Deming. Want to give him a shout out. Named first team all conference today. Ozzie Pratt, Colin Reuter named to the all freshman team. Brock Watkins, Cooper McKeon, Nate Dolly, Jack Sterner named to the second team. So we wish them well tomorrow night. They got to win that game tomorrow night, and then they go into double elimination. That's how the tournament's going to work. There's 6 teams, so 2 teams are going to be eliminated tomorrow. Right. Then you got the 4, and then you go into double elimination. And BYU's got a pitching staff that can get them deep.
I like their chances just because the way they've played down the stretch. The teams that are hot win tournaments, and they're hot right now. So,
track and field is honing into some big dates.
Track and field's not just hot; they're just really deep and really talented. They have built a dynasty over there. Track and field, NCAA preliminary start tomorrow in Fayetteville, Arkansas. 59. That's what we say deep. 59 entries for BYU. The men
that's a lot. 59.
Yeah, the men are ranked number 9 right now. The women are ranked number 14. The NCAA championships begin June 9th up in Eugene, Oregon.
They got a shot at the title.
They're always that's kind of low for BYU right now, 9-14. But don't be surprised if they finish much higher than that in the NCAAs. But this is a perennial top 10 program in men's and women's track, and a perennial top 5 program in cross country. What a phenomenal job!
A couple of national champions back in the fall.
Just amazing. So that's coming up.
Hey, keep your eye on Carson Lundell, outstanding golfer. The men's team, they start the NCAA championships in Scottsdale, and they're going to start on Thursday. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday tournament, and we see this happen with BYU sometimes. BYU's not going to play on Sunday like ever, and so they will play their Sunday round on Thursday.
Right.
So you play Sunday, and then they'll pick up first and second round with everybody else on Friday and Saturday. Does that work? Does that jack up your efforts?
I'm going back and forth on it because I think it depends on what kind of team you have. Do you have that kind of team? Like I'm watching this last weekend. I'm watching
PGA,
the PGA Championship, and I'm thinking, man, these dudes, like the 2 that were in the playoff, every time a clutch shot had to be made, they just picked it up. They were just so laser focused. Do you have a veteran group that is going to be laser focused, and when it's on the line would play better? If that's the case, then I think it's a disadvantage that you're doing your round on Thursday when nobody else is playing. If you're a little bit younger and you're just talented, maybe you just want to get it out of the way, and then there's no nerves, and then you can go play.
And everyone, has opinions on it, because what if Thursday's a perfect day, and then Sunday when the other schools are out there, it's like a hurricane,
right?
Or vice versa, and so fairness, I don't know what's fair. I know that Sunday play, BYU's just not going to do it, and that may have cost them a berth in the softball tournament by them having to move a whole regional, because that softball team certainly deserved to get in, and they got snubbed.
Somebody put that out in the chat a bit ago, where they just said, how does BYU's women's softball team get passed over?
Yeah.
It was a travesty. That's another dynasty type of a program, and that's a program I think when they move into the Big 12 is going to really compete right away, is that women's softball program.
We got a nice tweet from Mark Pope today, encouraging us and wishing us well.
Because he texted you and I.
Yeah, he texted. Yeah, it might have been just a text from us.
Mark just texted us.
And we hadn't heard from him for a while because he's been quiet. Yeah, because he's got a lot of things going on.
He's great
over in the basketball office. So he wished us well, and we appreciate that. But let's talk about what he's got going on. He's got to still replace Chris Burgess, who left for Utah. Now we expect it'll be Cahill Fennell. I think that's how you say that. A former Louisville assistant. It takes a little extra time for BYU to actually make a hire. And so it can float around in the media, and then all of a sudden it's going to be 4 weeks before it actually becomes official. That's what it appears to be trending to this guy. We know that Mark wanted some P5 experience as BYU prepares for the Big 12, and they go to Louisville and grab an assistant. Mm-hmm. And he wanted another African-American assistant.
Right. And I think BYU's going to be people have been in panic mode as we're walking around the community about the basketball program with the transfers and all that's been going on. And they still have a scholarship left. They're still actively recruiting. People forget that a couple of these guys that came in that were big-time transfers, they didn't sign until summer, last couple of years. So they need to go get another big is what they need to do. And they would really like to get a big that has range that can step out and stretch the defense a little bit. So
now between you and me, I gave a tour on a Saturday to a big.
Yeah.
Seemed to have a good time.
The day that I was, well, and here's the other thing. The day that I was co-hosting Sports Nation with Spencer, we had a big that was very skilled big that was walking around. And we got to figure out if we're allowed to talk about these guys' names.
We're not mentioning names. We're just saying guys are coming.
Right
that staff is working.
We got to figure out if we could do this or not. But because of our affiliation with BYU.
So we'll just say it may or may not have happened.
Yeah, they've had some very skilled big guys on campus, and we can say that.
Yep.
That's not a mystery. That they're still actively recruiting.
And then they got Rudy Williams, who's coming from Coastal Carolina.
It's a 6'2" guard. It's a guy that was a big-time recruit out of high school, signed with Kansas State, played there, transferred out. But this last year at Coastal Carolina, he's a phenomenal shooter. He shot 50% from the field and 45% from three. But he's a guy that's really athletic. Everybody's like, what are we going to do to replace Alex Barcelo? Well, this guy, how are you going to replace Alex Barcelo?
Right.
He's one of the most gutty, smart,
gifted three-point shooters.
Players, great shooter, one of the best shooters in the country. Hey, but I like what I'm seeing from Rudy Williams in the highlights that I've watched of Rudy Williams. He's a guy that can finish at the rim. He's athletic. He can step back and knock down threes. He can get his own shot. He can distribute the basketball. And they need guys that can shoot 45% from three. And they need a guy with a ball in his hands that can score. And so, yeah, I'm all about Rudy Williams right now. I from what I've seen, I think he's a really good get.
They got 6'8" Braden Moore coming out of I think Virginia. He's a high school kid, a 4-star ESPN 4-star guy.
Yep.
They're still looking for some size. I think everyone wants to go. Where is the 7'5" guy?
And if they get a 6'10" or 6'11",
somebody that can kind of be a mentor to.
That's
Tiki.
what I'm talking about. It would be nice to get a 6'10" or 6'11" guy. Like a Tiki's going to be a big-time back to the basket, in around the rim, rebound, change shots kind of a guy. Foose is a guy that seems to have really nice range out to 12, 15 feet. Would it be nice to have a guy that can make defenses chase all the way out to the perimeter? A 6'10", 6'11" guy that can go shoot threes and have a little more range, that you rotate in with those two guys. And now you've got something. Now you can create matchups that cause other teams problems. You mentioned Braden Moore, 6'8" power forward. Offers, so not just recruited by offers, Kansas, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Arizona State, Houston, San Diego State,
good group.
Auburn.
It's a good group.
Yeah, so this, Again, it's like, are we going to get an elite guys? Those are elite programs that have offered him. They get an elite guy.
And there were 6 guys that left. None of those 6 averaged more than 7 points a game, and they were familiar names, and they didn't want to sit the bench. They weren't Big 12 players. You can argue it back and forth, but I mean, the biggest contributor of the group that left went to the Big 12 in Caleb Lohner. We love Caleb, great guy, but 21% from the three-point line and 55% from the free throw line isn't going to get it done.
Yeah, and his shot's going to have to improve if he's going to play a bunch down at Baylor.
Right.
What the guy can do is rebound like crazy, and that's what BYU wanted him to do. Guy just goes and tracks everything, tracks boards out of his area.
But you just got to do, as you move into the toughest league in America, you got to do more.
Yep.
And so Braden Moore, a shooter, a rebounder, a big guy. Some of these guys are looking at fit that role, but I didn't have a problem with guys leaving. Life changes and things change, and things might not have been how you expected they would be after you came home from your mission, and that's okay. That's just how things go. But what we have seen the last 2 years watching the Big 12 on TV, that's a different place.
Yeah.
And BYU has to get different to go in there and compete.
Yeah, and as we watch Foose as a freshman, he continues to develop. He's a guy that can play in that league. And
Colin Chandler, he's a guy who can play in that league.
Colin Chandler can play in any league.
Dallin Hall, we believe, can play in that league.
Yeah. I think Toulson's a great shooter. He's the kind of guy that can shoot it in any league, right? And Atiki, remember, Atiki's a guy that didn't pick up basketball until late in life. And then the year that he really should have developed, he moves over to Toronto to really get development. And COVID shuts down the season, so he doesn't even play. That's the only way BYU gets him. If he gets the chance to play his senior year, he's got the kind of body where everybody's going, oh my goodness, this is an NBA body. Like his athleticism, his hands, his feet. And that's what Mark Pope and those guys see. And so I think they got to steal with him. And Mark does a great job of developing big guys. And so I think Atiki Atiki has a chance before he's done to be a really good 5 in the Big 12. And he's got the kind of body to play in that league.
And he'll be ready.
Like the guys in that league.
He'll be ready when Chandler gets home from his mission.
Somebody asked us here, Dr. Catch 1000 says, hey, can you guys do watch parties once in a while for basketball in addition to football?
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we can do whatever we want.
It's actually easier because there's more games at different times. It might be able to absolutely be able to do that.
That's a great idea. Hey, shout out to Elijah Bryant. This week he became the first player in history to win an NBA championship and a EuroLeague championship back-to-back seasons. And he just won the EuroLeague championship with his Turkish team a couple of days ago. So timing's everything for Elijah. It was everything for the Bucks. Last year he was playing for the Bucks and getting in a little bit, but he got a ring. Now he's got a second ring from the EuroLeague, and we see him on Twitter all the time. A shout-out to Elijah.
And he's playing in Turkey.
Yeah.
Right. So he's over in Turkey and high level Euro League and doing really well. Elijah's what a good guy. What a good representative of BYU over there. He's always representing the Y wherever he is.
Hey, what do you think of Amber Whiting, the new women's head basketball coach?
Pretty excited about that. People are like, what?
Well, it's a surprise because I don't think anyone thought that Tom Homo would go to high school, and no one knew who she was. But here she comes from Burley High School out of Idaho, and she was very successul.
And very successful in high school, but she's also been unbelievably involved in like AAU and nationally involved in that kind of stuff. So she's coached a lot of big-time players at that level. And I think that experience where she's been plugged into all of the recruits and that really, really high level of basketball right before – I think that's part of what she brings to this thing. She's going to relate to the players really, really well.
I think the key is she's got to hold this roster together,
and she's got to assemble a great staff.
Yeah,
I think she's got to keep some of the staff that's there because they understand the formula. Jeff, think about it. What Jeff's done over the years. Yeah. They have had consistent success, and. Man, they're really talented. What they've got coming back, they keep everybody together. They're gonna be really good again.
Shaylee Gonzalez and Lauren Gustin. You got the best scorer, best rebounder in the league. They'll be picked to win the league next year, even with a brand new coach. And so we look forward to getting to know her. We congratulate her. We all know Trent, her husband. We watched Trent play back in the day at the Marriott Center for the Cougars. And so Amber Whiting will succeed Jeff Judkins, who actually won more games than any basketball coach, men or women, man or woman in the history of the BYU program. It's a lot of games.
Yeah, it's amazing. So some of the guys asking about, will we ever be able to get players on? And we're going to try to do that. This whole NIL world has changed things a lot. We might have to bring them on and say, hey, listen, come on. You can tell us all about your NIL deal, right? But we'll do whatever we can to get those guys on. And, hey, this is a new adventure for us.
Yeah.
We know all these guys. We've got close ties to all the programs at the university. And we're going to do our best to bring.
Yeah, and a lot of them are on folks. BYU Sports Nation in the morning over on BYU TV. And so between the outlets, we should be able to, get them.
I don't even know how to say it. So it's ketogenic, ma'am.
All right.
Says, hey, guys, I heard about your live stream today on Jack Hatch's show, Locked On Cougars. Glad to see all BYU sports guys supporting each other, which is really cool. And we appreciate Jack Hatch, or Jake Hatch he's talking about. Jake Hatch doing that. And Jake had you went
I was on with Alex Carey and Scott Mitchell.
And Alex, talked about the show.
You were on Ben Criddle's show.
Ben Criddle's show. Yeah. We love all those guys, and we've had overwhelming support from a lot of the folks that have been plugged into BYU for years.
Hey, more is more.
Yeah.
More is more, and what we really hope to do, which will make us a little different, and we encourage you to listen to everybody and all their podcasts and radio shows, is the streaming of connecting everybody from around the world. That's really what our goal is on a Tuesday night, that, talk radio here in Salt Lake, the Salt Lakers can listen to it. But what we want is a global reach and be a place where you can come even if you don't live here.
Yeah, and so somebody else said, have you guys checked out Chaz, D-Lo, and Malik's little no politics thing that they post?
I haven't checked that out.
Yeah, I have. I'll tell you, one of the things, so I was talking to Gavin the other day, one of the things he's most proud of is that D-Lo and Malik and I think there was these corners that they've recruited out of Southern California, NorCal, kids that came over, and I think they had 4 or 5 of those kids graduate.
Shimon Willis graduated?
Yeah, graduated the other day. And for these coaches, that's a huge deal.
Caleb Hayes graduated.
Caleb graduated.
Going to law school?
Yep. Caleb Hayes going to law school. Yeah. BYU's great cover corner out there going to law school. D'Angelo Mandel, who I think is an NFL talent corner. BYU's going to have 2 NFL corners out there this year. And how about those two both? They're going to be playing their senior season as graduates.
That's awesome.
Graduated from BYU. You
know what's best about that? And you don't have to take a full load. Is that no homework.
Malik graduated, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Who'll be playing safety for BYU. How cool is that for those kids to come up and to graduate and be able to go in their senior years with a college degree in their hand? And a number of those guys have a shot to go on and play.
And isn't it interesting that the South Florida game has taken on a whole new twist because Baylor's quarterback transferred to South Florida a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And if he beats out the kid we saw last year, then BYU will play Baylor's old quarterback in the opener, and then they'll play Baylor's new quarterback in the home opener.
Exactly. The one they didn't play against.
But that makes South Florida a very interesting game. They're not going to lay down either back there in South Florida.
No, hey, South Florida.
Yeah.
So BYU, by the way, is already they're breaking down film game by game of their opponents for this next fall, and I get a chance to look at some of that at times. I have a little bit of an insight since one of the staff members lives at my house.
That helps.
But
it's going to help this show.
And I was talking to him about South Florida, and he's like, man, when you watch the film, their talent pops out off the film, and you're like, whoa, these guys have some great skills.
And they hung with BYU last year. I think it was like 34 to 27.
Don't sleep on South Florida. BYU's I think BYU's as skilled on offense as they've been in a long, long time. So I expect them to go out and, I think the over-under was at like 8.5. My over-under is like 9.5.
Yeah. I think that's right. If Hall's healthy, I think they'll win 10 games.
Yeah, I think so too. So health has a lot to do with it. They're deeper this year than they've been. But don't sleep on South Florida. And then Baylor's interesting because they're really good, and they've got that thing going now where they're just recruiting right over the top of the town.
They won the Sugar Bowl, the Big 12. They got it Moxie.
Yeah, so they've got some good recruiting class. And remember, their players aren't all going off on missions. They're coming right in and playing, right? Yeah. But you got to keep in mind that Baylor team last year that not only pushed BYU around, they pushed everybody around in the Big 12 last year. All 5 of their offensive linemen were either all 5 or 4 or 5 were COVID seniors, and their entire starting secondary were COVID seniors. That team is as veteran a team as I remember BYU playing ever, and it showed. Like, those guys were big, physical. They knew what they were doing.
And some game-changing mistakes happened with BYU's freshman linemen.
With their youth. And so it'll be a little different. Now BYU comes in with a veteran team next year, and Baylor's got to replace all those guys. Now, they're going to replace them with great talent, and they're going to be big and physical because that's how they built that thing. But they're not going to have the experience they had last year.
It's going to be a great opener.
Can BYU go in and beat Baylor? I don't see why not. I don't see why not.
I think Jets are going to buzz the stadium, and that's going to be a day to remember on September 10th.
So I love now they're chatting with each other a little bit about some of the places where they're chatting. I'd be interested to hear where people are coming from. We got somebody listening. Dr. Ketch is saying how much he loves Santa Fe, but we got people listening in Santa Fe. And somebody said, "Hi,
United Kingdom.
It's 2:27 a.m. in the UK." If somebody pipes in from the
Singapore
UK,
or somewhere else over there,
and hey, we forgive them if they just watch it on their own at another time. So.
ESPN preseason power rankings came out this week. Some new ones. BYU is 25th. They were 23 in the old one that they put out. Two Cougar opponents ranked in there. Notre Dame, number 7. Oregon, number 24. And it's based on return production, recent recruiting, and recent history. That's how they kind of put this together. BYU finished number 19 last year in the AP Top 25. So ESPN has them sitting at 25. Why aren't they higher?
I think people look and go, "Oh man, how did they not go win that bowl game?" And they're not looking at. They don't understand sometimes. I'm not sure that they do enough to understand who got hurt last year and who's coming back from injury. And I look at that and I say, "Whoa, wait a minute here. BYU on the defensive side of the ball, they were really pretty solid at the beginning of the year. I mean, people think back." To how they managed against Utah. Utah didn't run the ball at will against BYU. And then you lose Keenan Peely, Peyton Wilgar, and Max Tooley. And you were talking about all 3 starting linebackers were out, right? And you had Batty banged up. You lost Chaz Ayu for a better part of the season. So they faded a little bit. They were playing a lot of young players. Well, guess what? Those young players got better as the season progressed. They had some players that had been back from missions that they were limited time that are going to have a bigger role this year. But Keenan Peely and Peyton Wilgar are going to be back. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, 2 NFL caliber linebackers that were really good at the beginning of the year last year before their injuries and are going to come back hungry to prove that they're NFL guys. And so I think BYU's defense is not going to get – BYU's given all kinds of credit, or the national pundits are giving all kinds of credit because they're looking at production coming back on offense. They know BYU's deep at every position. They're not giving them enough credit for who's coming back on the defensive side. I think that's where BYU's going to surprise people. That's where they go from that, oh, maybe they'll win 8 games to where you and I think they'll win 10. That's where people maybe don't give them a shot against Baylor, and I go, well, I don't know. Maybe I do give them a shot against Baylor. You know, we do give them a shot against Arkansas.
And Notre Dame down in Vegas.
We do give them a shot against Notre Dame in Vegas, where that's going to be one heck of an environment down there. Yeah. Notre Dame's the only team that can probably draw as well as BYU in Vegas. That's going to be a packed house with a divided crowd, and that's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. And we'll have a great show before it and coming after it as we answer your questions.
We'll do a great show here. We'll take our hopefully we'll take our countdown to kickoff and post-game live show on the road like we did last year to Vegas.
As we should. I think that's the plan.
We'll preview every one of these teams as we lead up to the season. Then the week of the show, we'll make sure you understand all the matchups, who's in, who's out, who's hurt, what the game plan looks like, all of that. And we're not going to forget about the other sports either.
No. But we do know that football is
we know that you guys love football.
Let's go.
So,
let's go.
Hey, the Tokyo, hello, 10:30 a.m. Awesome. Somebody just tell us
Tokyo.
Oh, it's my boy Corey. So that's Corey Yoshimura, who basically runs the Asian PGA Tour.
Oh, yeah.
I just was at the Masters with Corey. I love that Corey is listening to us in Tokyo, 10:30 a.m. I'm assuming, Corey, that you're in the office working. But Corey took Spencer Linton and I and hosted us at the Masters a couple of weeks ago. And Corey is, he's over a lot of the public relations and all the things that happen for the PGA Tour in
Corey,
Asia.
I'd like to be your new best friend because the Masters is coming up next year.
Yeah, so and I'm so pumped, and that's great. Corey says that he's excited to follow along every week from Tokyo. Let's Corey, we got to build a group over there.
Get some friends together.
We got to build a group over there. You need to gather the Cougars in Tokyo, Corey. And you gotta get them to come on and be here with us. That's awesome. So yeah, absolute shout out to Corey Yoshimura, our good friend. Hey, Corey takes care of Hideki over there.
Yeah,
and Kaya and that whole group over there. And hey, Hideki can't be who Hideki is without Corey.
No.
So
we all know that over here. The NFL today announced the Combine is going to stay in Indianapolis in 23 and 24. How many BYU players do you think will be invited to the Combine next spring?
Ooh, that's an interesting, because I think BYU's going to have some guys that are going to declare next year that aren't going to be seniors. If
they have good years, for sure.
So it's like, that changes it, right? So Blake Freeland technically would have another year, but if you're a projected top 10 pick, do you not go?
You go.
Right. Jaron Hall.
You call Zach, you say, Zach, how much you get paid? Okay, I'm going.
If Jaron Hall stays completely healthy, he's a Combine guy.
Yeah.
If Brooks has the kind of season that he could have behind that offensive line, Brooks is probably a guy that could be there.
What about Puka Nacua? And Romney.
Nacua and Romney both are potential Combine invites. And then on the defensive side, we just talked about Peely and Wilgar that are possibilities. And what about those corners?
Yeah.
What about D'Angelo Mandela? What about Caleb Hayes? What about that group?
They're playing a schedule that can showcase their skills against good talent.
And here's what's happened. Here's what happens too. When your team has success, you have a chance to shine more. Especially, so you look at a guy like Brooks. Does Brooks have a chance to get invited? Not if he's playing on a crappy team. He doesn't. He's playing running back. He has to have horses up front to get him a 1,000-yard plus season, which I think is very possible, right?
Yeah.
If you're Puka and you're Gunner, maybe Puka gets invited anyhow because he's just a freak, and Gunner can just run away from me. If those two could stay healthy next year, and honestly, I was talking to Gunner about this, and I was talking to Puka about it. I asked them. I said, "Does anybody in the country have a better starting two outside wide receivers than this group anywhere?" And Puka goes, "Well, I know the Pac-12, and nobody in the Pac-12 does." And I love that confidence, right? And Gunner's like, "No, nobody in the country is better than us." So they're playing with a little swag, right? They're playing with a little like, yes, we know we're good, and we're going to go out and we're going to dominate. But you think about it, like, outside of Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, those kinds of teams, I don't care who you're talking about. Those two are as good as anybody has. Puka's a big-time talent. He's an NFL guy.
It's going to be fun to watch this fall.
Yeah, and so, we've just named a few. It all depends on how that season goes. It all depends on if they're really good, those guys have a chance to shine more. They've got to stay healthy. But absolutely, there's more than one offensive lineman that has a chance to shine this next year as well. The good news for BYU is when I look across that offensive line, Blake Freeland's a junior. Clark Barrington's an NFL guy. He's a junior. Connor Pay's just a sophomore at center, so he's a year away or two away.
Got Kingsley.
Campbell Barrington's just a sophomore. Kingsley Samatea transferred down from Oregon. He's just gonna be a freshman.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's an NFL guy down the road. When we say they probably have 5 of their 10 guys in their 2 deep are NFL guys. We're not talking about all next year, right? The one that just jumps out at you probably after next year is Blake Freeland. But a number of those guys have a chance to really shine. This is a good group. Clark Barrington's coming back from some off-season surgery, so he's been playing kind of nicked up. If he can be 100% healthy, he's a dominant player in there. They're really, really good up front. Really good up front. And they're deeper than I remember them in a long time on the defensive side of the ball up front, but really young up there as well. Got a couple of senior guys. Earl Tuioti Mariner is a senior that's on that D-line, and Lorenzo Fautea. It seems like he's been around a long time.
Yes, he has.
But that's a couple of seniors, and then you got a bunch of sophomore, freshmen, juniors. I'll tell you, I was disappointed. Logan Fanu. Yeah. I usually don't say that freshmen right off of a mission can play. 2 weeks into spring ball, I'm like, this dude's going to play. There's no way I know Kalani doesn't like to. He's too good not to. And then
ACL.
Then he got hurt.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Earlier we had mentioned that Caleb Hayes at Keenan Ellis is the one in law school, graduated. Hayes a little bit younger. And Keenan's the one who got hurt down there in Vegas against Arizona. And his football was taken away from him for health reasons. Finished his degree in sociology and is heading to law school, which is outstanding.
Yeah, really cool.
A couple other things. Western Conference Finals, Game 4, Golden State, Dallas. Warriors can sweep with that a win tonight.
That's my team.
As we're in real time. Cubs are beating the Reds.
And it's like
10-3.
I'm not a bandwagoner either, just so you know. I'm not a bandwagoner. Steph's my guy.
He is your guy.
Steph is my guy. He's always been my guy. When KD goes, I'm like, I don't care about KD. This is Steph's team. KD leaves. They're still great. Steph's the man. That's enough said. They're going to win the championship this year.
They look like they're pretty good. They look like they've got it going. Dallas, who was looking pretty good, in the previous series, and had no trouble with the Jazz. They've run into a buzzsaw, and we'll see if it's Boston and the Warriors, maybe.
Yep.
The Heat are decent.
Yeah. No, I think the Warriors all the way. I've been saying that since the beginning, and
I didn't know Steph was your guy.
He's been my guy for a long time. I feel like Steph. We talk about LaVelle Edwards and Gary Scheide changed the college passing game. Yeah. Steph changed basketball. Like he changed the NBA,
and he changed it in a good way in college too. If you're hitting the three,
yeah.
But if you're missing the three, you're going to still shoot them because he's changed the glory of the 3-point shot.
But the NBA doesn't throw it into Shaq guys anymore. The NBA spreads the floor out and they shoot the basketball, and that's Steph. Steph changed the game of basketball for the better, in my opinion, and I love watching him play. So yeah, I'm a Steph guy all the way. So I've got the Warriors. There's
a lot of entertainment news we want to talk about. This is like going to the grocery store. There's a lot of aisles of stuff.
Yeah, and by the way, like we're gonna sports are folks, but if there's something that's going on out there that you guys want to talk about, we're gonna talk about it.
Let's talk about Top Gun Maverick coming out this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know why they threw Maverick in there. Just Top Gun 2 would have worked, but it went Top Gun Maverick.
They just don't like the idea of a 2. It's like this whole new thing. It's about Mav.
When Top Gun came out, I just went on my mission. It came out in May of '86, so I had to wait 2 years. I think I saw it in June of '88 and saw some of it again the other night. I hope this one's good. I've heard some good reviews on this one. I'd be disappointed if we're disappointed. This one was done and has sat for 2 years on the shelf while we got through COVID. And
they decided it was going to be so good that they were not going to waste it with a limited release and
or right out on Stream
or whatever. No, they did not do that. And so I respect that. So they got a lot of
It's like a sports movie. There's always a beach scene. They're playing football and volleyball.
One of the great all-time. It's just like an iconic film. Can this one live up to it? I hope so. I think the fight scenes and the plane scenes, like just from the coming attractions, it looks awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be good. Oh, also this week, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's been advertised forever on the Disney Plus, and then Vader's back with that one. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm all about that one as well.
Anything that's got Vader in it.
I'm more excited about Top Gun, but I'm also good for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm also good for Obi.
So you and I have been working together since 1989, and I looked up a couple of things today because we're here in 2022, embarking on this new journey. A lot of things happened for one. The number one song on this day in 1989. Paula Abdul, Forever Your Girl.
Was that not the video she did with like a cartoon cat?
I have no idea.
Am I wrong with that?
It might have been. I haven't heard of the name Paula Abdul since the Lakers were good.
By the way, I just got a glimpse of myself. Like, my eyes got black too, didn't they?
You look tough. There's no question.
So not only did I just bust my bridge of my nose and have a giant cut, but I got black eyes now.
There's a good chance that thing's busted. I'm looking forward to next week.
It's not good. What's thanks for that, DJ.
Our live band over there. Thanks, DJ.
Gives me the wah, wah, wah.
The blockbuster movie released on this day in 1989, since we're talking about 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Classic.
Today.
You ever go back and watch like sometimes you're flicking through and you get TNT or TBS and Indiana Jones and you got to stop.
You just have to stop.
And you're just like, man, we thought the special effects back then were awesome.
And now they're so stupid.
Yeah. Now I look at them like, oh, those weren't very good. For the time, they were great.
But the soundtrack remains.
Do you remember the effect when they opened up the Ark of the Covenant and and the guy's face melted off.
Yeah, that freaked me out.
Yeah, that freaked me out. I had bad dreams about that. That special effect was like nothing.
Who knows how it would be
like
if they did it?
We had ever seen before.
If they did a remake of that today, you know what allows those.
So I'm glad Fully Invested just corrected me. Opposites Attract is the one
that was with the cat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Bluesville 1 says, "Whoa, sudden flashback of the palace." Of course, referring to the ever favorite Star Palace,
right?
Where my man Elder Sikahema of the First Quorum of the 70 owned the Star Palace.
Of course, he did.
Vi Sikahema was the Star Palace king at the time, and now we listen to him speak at General Conference.
I'd expect nothing less.
You can make it from King of the Star Palace, which for you younger folks was a dance club on 900 East that everyone. And Ladies' Night was Wednesday night, or was it Tuesday night?
I don't know.
And all I know is they played Kool and the Gang. Oh, yes, it's Ladies' Night. Ladies got in for free. Vi Sikahema ran that place, and now he's a general.
I once gave I worked for K96, and I was in charge of giving out a scooter, and one of the Bellini brothers won the scooter. And I gave them the keys, and they got a little scooter.
Everybody's remembering the Star Palace here. Dr. Ketch says, "Wow, I remember the Star Palace." And Linda Murray's like, "King of the Star Palace? I remember going there too." And Dr. Ketch says, "Yeah, 9th East."
We were all in there.
People remember the Palace. So, and I appreciate Fully Invested letting me know that was Opposites Attract, where Paul Abdul did that's the first thing I ever remember where a cartoon character was integrated in the same video with a regular human being. Paul Abdul dancing with a animated cat. So
I remember after the night I got home from my mission, my brother Darren and his friend took me to the palace. They said, "Let's go," and I was 2 years removed from that, and then I went in and I found a corner and I was sitting there, just like going, "What in the world?" It made me feel good because I knew I had left the world for my mission, so to speak. Because this was, and then some girl who knew me from high school came up and introduced herself, and she goes, "You just get back from your mission?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Come on, let's go." And she danced with me all night because she realized she kind of brought me back in. And I don't remember her name, but I just remember it was at the palace, and I was so grateful for her.
Hey, Brenda and I went to the palace back in the day. I may have danced with my wife back in the old palace days, and she was a dance major at BYU and the captain of the Cougarettes. So, yeah, and that's pretty much where I got my moves. I just watched Vi Sikahema.
We were just in Mexico. I saw your moves.
That's right.
When we were down there.
Yeah. So just so you guys know, Dave and I decided to take our wives when we were down in Cabo to Cabo Wabo, and we went out.
Sammy Hagar's place.
We went out dancing at Sammy Hagar's place to a live house band, and while we were dancing, a group of folks came in, and Dave said to me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't those people look like they're from Utah? I'm like, how do you know that?
They just looked like they came right out of a Relief Society meeting.
So I'm like, come on, Dave. And so I go over,
and then they were looking at us and looking at their phones and laughing and whatever.
So then I go over and I, hey, just having some good clean fun in Cabo Wabo dancing, right? And I go over and I say, "Hey, where are you guys from?" And they say, "We're from Utah, just like you and Dave."
We know who you are.
It's like, no.
Oh, thank goodness we're
yeah.
And my wife busted my chops because I didn't have dance moves. And I was like, whoa, let's not look past the miracle that I'm even on a dance floor at all.
You were out there, and we were some friends that got out on the floor. Like, hey, we all went. We went back a second night, and took the rest of the gang with us, and we danced. And I had some flashbacks of Ladies' Night at the Palace. On 900.
We'll always have the Palace.
Hey, for you younger folks listening, how about we bring the Star Palace? But there's no dance club in Provo. Let's bring the Palace back to 9th East. That would be fun. That'd be fun.
Other great facts from '89. Gas was $1 a gallon. Seinfeld debuted on NBC. One of the greatest shows of all time. That earthquake hit in Game 3 of the A's and Giants.
Forget that. The freeways just collapsed. The overpasses collapsed onto one another. Yeah. That was scary.
That was going on. And then the World Wide Web was invented, which paved the way for the debut of the Wise Guys tonight in 2020. So there's a lot going down in 1989 that has come full circle.
Yeah, pretty cool. I'll never forget that World Series that happened. It was an all Bay Area series, right? Giants and the A's.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of trouble with that earthquake. A lot of lives were lost and damage and all those things. And the reason it's attached to the World Series is the game was on. I mean, rarely does something happen in live TV of that magnitude, and so it was a baseball game. That's not nearly as important as dealing with the earthquake. But we were watching the baseball game when we saw the earthquake.
Have you ever been in an earthquake before?
Yeah, the one we had in Utah 2 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't feel that one. I felt that one. Did you feel that one?
Yeah, came rumbling through.
I was in a.
It was up in Magna, I think.
I was in one that shook almost enough to drop us from our feet. I was actually presenting at a meeting in San Diego, and there's one just off the coast under the ocean, and I just stopped, and everybody was just still, and it shook for like, I don't know, seemed like forever. I'm sure it was just 20 or 30 seconds, and then one of the participants said, "Holy crap, that was an earthquake. Let's get out of here." And everybody ran out into the, and I thought, I'm not sure that's what we're supposed to do.
Run out screaming?
I just ran out with everybody. Have you ever been in a tornado?
No.
So when I was with Corey Yoshimura and our group in Spencer, we were driving. They closed down Augusta National late in the afternoon. We were driving back to South Carolina to our hotel because there's no place to stay.
You stayed at a hotel in South Carolina for the tournament in Augusta, Georgia?
50-minute drive over to where the University of South Carolina is, over in South Carolina. You can't find a place in Augusta. The players stay at people's houses, you know. And everybody's phone started to go like these warning things. They had closed the tournament down because there was tornadoes in the area, and we were driving right into a high tornado area. And I said to Corey and to Spencer, who, by the way, was snoring asleep, Spencer Linton, everybody. I'm like, what are we supposed to do? They go, yeah, we don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, are we supposed to get out of the car? Are we supposed to get down in the ditch? I mean, like, what are we supposed to do? I'm not sure what we're supposed to do, you guys. And they said, yeah, we don't know what to do. And I just kept driving. And then it was quiet for about a minute. And I'm like, no, guys, really, we need to have a plan. Like, what if we actually run into a tornado? And
well, what were you thinking? Get out of the car and scatter?
No, we Googled it, and it said that we should have just gotten down in the ditch. Like, you don't drive your car right into a tornado. So
if you, don't do that. Yeah. But if you are going to do that, then record it on your phone.
Yep.
So we can see that.
Anyhow.
All right, we got just a few more minutes for our debut tonight. We're going to give you a feel of what we got going on, and we love the interaction. And for our debut, which is sweet, and you can watch our podcast and all that stuff too. But
somebody, did you post that? Did you post that, DJ, or did you post that, Jack, with Dave and I in 1990 with our baby faces?
Yeah, those were the glory years. A couple of thoughts for us to think about throughout the week. Which game on the fall schedule are you most worried about?
Yeah. We're gonna talk about that next week.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about it for a moment as a teaser, because everyone else is out thinking about it, and we'll dive into all football.
Like, which one do I think is the most difficult? Or
the which one you're looking at going, dang, everything's got to go good for us to win that.
I think the Notre Dame game in Vegas
is
the toughest game in the schedule. Don't get me wrong, Arkansas is really good, but that's an SEC team coming up to Elevation to play in Provo. For some reason, that doesn't scare me as much as the Notre Dame game. So I think Notre Dame game is the toughest game of the schedule.
Hey, Linda Murray, we're glad that you survived the tornadoes
in
Texas and Colorado.
Yeah, there you go.
Survivor, tough.
Well, and Dr. Ketch said he was in that Northridge one in the 70s. That big Northridge quake was something, right?
What's it going to be like when the Cougars take the field coming out of the tunnel at Allegiant Stadium? When they did against Arizona, we were there because Countdown was live right inside the place where we expect to be again. But the thunderous roar of 45,000 BYU fans on the road, which was awesome.
It was amazing.
But
actually,
this is going to be a little different. All 65,000 seats will probably be purchased at a high price. And there's going to be a roar when the Cougs come out. There's going to be a roar when the Irish come out.
And I don't know, because remember, this is Notre Dame's game.
Yeah.
This is part of their Shamrock series where they played over in Ireland, and so they take this one game on the road every year. Their fan base follows them. I'm not even quite sure. We'll have to find out maybe by next week how the ticket situation goes on that.
Yeah, we don't know what BYU's going to get.
Does BYU get half the tickets? I think they don't. So this may be more like the Oklahoma game where BYU had a phenomenal contingent down in Jerry Jones' world down there.
But they had 80,000.
But Oklahoma dominated the crowd there. It got awfully quiet when when BYU won that.
When Max Hall hit
and the crowd that BYU did have there went nuts when Max Hall.
It was kind of like the Nebraska, because the fans were so high up, but when BYU was only one cheering after Mitch Matthews caught the touchdown, it was like, wait, where did that come from?
The silence was overcome by a roar from a small section in that stadium. So I'm not sure. Notre Dame may have a bigger crowd down there, but
I'd like to think that Notre Dame would be fair with that because of the 2 games they'd promised in Provo that they're not going to live up to. To go, hey, we'll play in Vegas. We know you can sell every seat, so we're going to allow you, I don't know, maybe 60-40.
BYU could sell 65,000 seats to that game.
For that game.
They literally could sell the place out themselves for that game. And I hope that Notre Dame recognizes that. It would really be nice if they were half and half. But BYU fans are resourceful. They'll buy them through Notre Dame if they have to. They're smart.
There were a lot of people that bought Arizona tickets
through
Arizona so they could be there. They were sitting around Arizona fans, but they were in their blue shirts. What about this final year of independence? Do you think, and here's another thought that we'll tackle as we get through the summer, but do you think everybody will kind of live in the moment and enjoy it, or is it all so much about let's get this over with, the Big 12's coming?
I for one am going to enjoy it because I love the schedule. Yeah. And you got Baylor coming to Provo. You're going on the road to Oregon. That's a great stadium to play in. I hope fans make the trek up there. You got an old rivalry game in Wyoming. You got Wyoming coming to Provo. You got Utah State. These are 2 old rivals coming, and that Utah State game's not going to be played for a while. Right. Maybe for a long while.
Long time.
So that next contract hasn't been figured out. So that's going to be a fun game. That Notre Dame game at Allegiant. You got an SEC team in Arkansas who was really good last year and supposed to be good again, coming to Provo.
That's got the potential to be the toughest game.
Yeah.
But we'll see how motivated they are. It's the middle of the season. They're coming out from where are they at in the SEC? And also what shape BYU's in coming out of the Irish.
And Liberty's a game that you don't think about Liberty, but Liberty's team's been ranked the last couple years and playing some really, really good football. And then East Carolina comes to Provo. Last time BYU went to East Carolina,
that didn't work out.
It didn't work out so good. So a little revenge factor with that one. You got Boise State up at Boise
in November,
which is never an easy game. But
and what happened last time BYU was up there didn't go so well for the Broncos, and it's also their last meeting. Remember, they were scheduled through 36.
Right.
All those are gone.
And then and I like the fact that here you are. We're talking about late October. You got East Carolina coming. That's a good matchup because that's what's been hard in Independence, these late season games. Yeah. But then you got Boise State, which is a big game. And hey, you got to give it to Boise State for signing this long-term deal with BYU and playing them late in the season.
Boise State was their best friend. I wrote about this in the Desert News a couple weeks ago. They were BYU's best friend during.
Nobody should ever say anything bad about Boise State. They have been a great partner.
We don't have to like the blue turf.
Nope.
We don't have to like that. But
you can want to beat them, but you got to give them kudos for the good partner they've been to BYU. And then Utah Tech comes up from St. George. A lot of BYU ties with the coaching staff down there. So a game that BYU should be able to kind of get healthy. Then they go on the road and play at Stanford.
Yeah.
Which Stanford doesn't.
Thanksgiving weekend.
Stanford doesn't draw a big crowd, but they played a lot of young guys last year.
But BYU will draw a big crowd.
That's what I think is going to be fun. You may have the biggest crowd at a Stanford game in a lot of years. And, my son-in-law Dallas was a captain there and played on those teams with Christian McCaffrey, where they were Rose Bowl type of a team and number 5 nationally. And I'm betting that when BYU goes and plays there can be a bigger crowd in that stadium than during those years, because BYU can pack it in there. That would be fun. You think it'll be a takeover down on the farm? I'm hoping for a hostile farm takeover. I'm hoping for a BYU takeover. And I normally root for Stanford all the time, but not in that game. And I don't know. We're going to have to see what Dallas is going to do. I think Dallas is going to have to root for Stanford. And can I blame him? You can tell him to be quiet. He can cheer. I mean, his wife's a BYU grad. Libby, my daughter's a BYU grad. It seems like, and you work there. It seems like he could come over. But he was a captain on a Rose Bowl championship team that beat the crap out of Iowa. Just tell him to sit. Look at that picture right there. There's been a lot of ball games between that. Who is that guy? And that's when I was a reporter at Good Morning America in New York, a student at BYU, flying in and in time to do Saturdays. By the way, this may have been a picture from the day when I was trampled by the fans after the Washington State game. While you and Jay Monson laughed upstairs, you were safe. Dave was a youngin'. There's a picture of Blaine. Don't we have one? People don't know about Dave's history. When Dave was still a student, he won a national student contest and worked for Good Morning America right out of college, right when he was still in college.
Yeah.
And then went to Vegas. And hey, we got some topics we're going to cover. You guys won't even think we're going to cover, because I got a guy sitting next to me that's interviewed presidents and prime ministers and kings and covered Olympic Games all over the world.
And I've asked no one more questions than I've asked you.
It's true, because we've been together for a long, long time. Hey, Benny G57 was asking. He says he's trying to make a decision, Dave. We got to help this. We got to help make a decision. He's like, I'm trying to make a decision. Which one are you more excited about? As an out-of-state fan, I'm trying to figure out which game I should come up for, the Baylor game or the Arkansas game.
Baylor.
Oh.
I think you want Baylor because it's all fresh and new. It's the start of the home season, the start of the last season as in independent. There's going to be a nice vibe there.
And everybody should be relatively healthy.
But the leaves will have changed by the Arkansas game.
Yeah, the Arkansas game is October 15th. That's a great time of year to be in.
Yeah, you can't come to both?
Yeah, come on. You know what?
But I'd go to Baylor.
If you have to take out a loan to come to both, you just come to both. But I think I'm with Dave. I think it would take Baylor because it's a little bit of a revenge match this year.
I hope we helped on that. So look, a final thought I found a story told by the great Lavelle Edwards. You ready for it? This will be something to chew on.
Wait, before this. Is there merch? Meaning, is there merchandise? Like, you know what? Merch is coming soon. Stay tuned.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have some Wise Guys merch. So anyhow, I'm going to turn it over to you for this great grand finish, Dave.
All right. This is told by the great Lavelle Edwards. A writer looking for reactions to a paragraph written by author Jack London asked Kenny Stabler, the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, his opinion on the following passage. I'd rather be ashes than dust. I'd rather my flame go out in a burning spark than to be stifled with dry rot. I'd rather be a splendid meteor blazing across the sky, every atom in me in magnificent glow, than be a sleepy and permanent planet. Life is to be lived, not to exist. I shall not waste my days trying to prolong them. I will use my time, close quote. The writer asked Stabler, what does that mean to you? Throw deep, said the quarterback. Lavelle gave that in one of his speeches, and how true is that? And I know Kenny Stabler. I worked a game with him when I was a student at BYU, and I can see him saying that. All this stuff, what does that mean to me? Chuck it deep.
Just chuck it.
Chuck it deep and see what happens. We know that Jaron Hall is going to chuck it deep this fall because he's been working on that with Puka and Gunner in the spring and summer, getting their timing down.
Dallin Holker can get deep, too, from the tight end position. Let's not forget that. And Rex. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun this year. And BYU's got how many months till they go into the Big 12?
Well, July 1, 23 is the official. Everyone's in the Big 12. So September is when the first opponent will come. We don't know. Who do you want that to be? You know, and right now there's some early September dates. I mean, you could throw Texas in here at 100 degrees.
Because it looks like Texas and Oklahoma are going to be in
2 years, maybe.
I want a home game with Oklahoma here in the very first year. That's all I'm asking.
That's what you want. I'd like Texas to come back in. I think that would be cool.
Boomer Sooner, baby.
And then have Taysom run up the flag.
Oh,
jump over somebody.
They would have like recurring nightmares. The Texas fans still have nightmares of him hurdling people.
Yeah, as they should. Look for our podcast debut. You can download wherever you get your podcasts. And ysguys.com is the hub for all information as we move forward. Please subscribe to all that we got going on and tell your friends. We got 14 months before the Big 12. And again, our goal is to bring together the largest group of BYU fans in a live stream and do it every week in the entire world. And the key is, as we're the Wise Guys, is ysguys.com.
Yep. Get on there and look for, snippets out on different media platforms. We're going to be rolling things out on Instagram and on Twitter, and you'll be able to see the podcast wherever you watch a podcast. So, join us. We'd love to have you here live with us, live stream with us, and talk about the things that you want to talk about.
I like that you coordinated your tape on your nose to your shirt.
I always go in style, and I'm colorblind.
What's going to be next week?
No, I'm colorblind.
I do know you're colorblind.
What's not funny is my wife, when I got home, said, what was the door, green or red? And you couldn't tell the difference. I was like, very funny. It was clear glass. Leave me alone. Don't pick on the guy that's colorblind.
What did I ask you when you said, I ran into a door? I text you back, goes, Why didn't you open it first?
It's like, why didn't you open it? I'm like, come on. I'll do a demonstration of how I ran in the door next week on the show. So come back and you'll have that demonstration.
Oh, that'll be great. Well, I'm curious to see what tape we'll have. And then we'll tell some stories like why Blaine can't eat within 3 hours of kickoff.
We got to get into that,
some
right?
Fascinating stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
We're glad to have you with us. We're underway, and we hope to be here for years and years to come. ysguys.com. Until next week, we'll see you on all our social media outlets. And then we'll be back.
See you next week.
As the Wise Guys. Thank you for being with us tonight.